The morning sun stretched long shadows across the Montana ranch as Katherine Brennan adjusted the scope on a well-worn Remington 700. Her hands moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had performed this ritual 1,000 times before. 50 yards downrange, a weathered Marine sat behind sandbags, his 70-year-old hands trembling slightly as he gripped the rifle she had just handed him. "Breathe," Kate said softly. "Let the crosshairs settle. Don't force it." The old Marine's finger found the trigger. A moment passed, then another. The crack of the rifle split the morning air, and 300 yards away, the steel target rang with a satisfying ping. The old man lowered the weapon and Kate saw tears streaming down his weathered face. She had seen this before. Something about the discipline of shooting, the focus it demanded, seemed to quiet the demons that followed men home from war. "Thank you, ma'am," the Marine said, his voice thick. "I haven't felt this calm in 30 years. Kate nodded, saying nothing. She understood. This ranch, this work, was the only thing that made sense anymore. Teaching broken men to find peace through the same tools that had broken them. Her father would have appreciated the irony. The sound of tires on gravel pulled her attention toward the long driveway that wound through the pine trees. A black SUV emerged from the tree line, moving with the deliberate pace of someone who knew exactly where they were going. Kate felt her jaw tighten. She knew that vehicle, knew the man inside it. "Class dismissed," she told the group of veterans gathered around the shooting benches. "Same time next week." The SUV came to a stop 30 feet from where she stood. The door opened, and Colonel Thomas Hartley stepped out into the Montana sunshine. He looked older than she remembered, much older. The uniform was gone, replaced by civilian clothes that hung a bit too loose on his frame. His face had the gray pallor of a man who had stopped sleeping well. Kate did not move to greet him. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other across the distance. 5 years of silence stretched between them like barbed wire. "Katie," Tom said finally. His voice was rough, as if he had forgotten how to use it for anything other than giving orders. "Colonel," her tone was ice. Tom flinched at the formality. He took a step forward, then seemed to think better of it. His eyes swept across the ranch, taking in the shooting range her father had built. The barn where James Brennan had taught her to reload ammunition when she was 9 years old. The house where her mother had died when Kate was barely old enough to remember her face. "I heard you were doing good work here," Tom said. "Veterans with PTSD, your father would be proud." "Don't." The word came out sharper than Kate intended. "Don't talk about him like you knew what would make him proud." Tom's eyes dropped to the ground. When he looked up again, Kate saw something in his expression that made her anger falter. Not guilt. She had seen guilt in him before, in the weeks after her father's death. This was something else, something that looked like fear. "I'm dying, Katie." The words hung in the air between them. Kate felt her hands go still on the rifle she was holding. "Cancer," Tom continued. "Lungs, the doctors say 4 to 6 months. Maybe less." He paused and a bitter smile crossed his face. "Decades of exposure in the field, the kind that comes with the job. Took 40 years to show up, but it's here now." Kate set the rifle down carefully on the shooting bench. She was surprised to find that her hands were steady. "Why are you here, Tom?" "Because I need to tell you the truth before I die." Tom reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder, its edges worn from handling. "About your father, about how he really died." "He died in Afghanistan," Kate said. The official story had been burned into her memory. "I.e.'d on a convoy route outside Kandahar. I was at the funeral. I folded the flag." "That's what they told you." Tom took a step closer, holding out the folder. "That's what they told everyone. But it's a lie, Katie. Your father wasn't killed by an IED." Kate did not take the folder. "What are you talking about?" "James Brennan was killed by a sniper, a professional, someone who made a shot from 2,800 meters. That's not Taliban, Katie. That's not some insurgent with an old Dragunov. That was a world-class marksman working for someone with serious resources." The words seemed to come from very far away. Kate heard them, understood them, but they did not connect to anything real. Her father had died in an explosion. She had seen the pictures, seen the aftermath. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Tom opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. "This was taken by a surveillance drone 3 minutes after your father died. Look at the entry wound. Look at the angle." Kate took the photograph with numb fingers. The image was grainy, but clear enough. Her father's body lying in the dust. And there, just visible, the small puncture wound that no IED could have made. Who? The word came out as barely a whisper. His name is Nikolai Volkov, former Spetsnaz sniper, one of the best in the world. He's been operating in Syria for the last 5 years as a warlord, human trafficking, mostly, uses refugees as leverage for ransom and weapons deals. Tom pulled another document from the folder. This came across my desk 2 weeks ago. Intelligence intercept. Volkov is meeting with other warlords in Syria in 3 days. It's the first time he's surfaced in a location we can predict in over a decade. If we don't take this shot, Katie, we might never get another chance. Kate looked up from the photograph. Her father's face stared back at her from a dozen memories. Teaching her to shoot, reading to her before bed, standing at her mother's grave, promising he would always be there. Why now, she asked. Why wait 14 years to tell me this? Tom's expression hardened. Because for 14 years, I didn't have a way to kill him, and because I didn't think you were ready, but I was wrong on both counts. He reached back into the folder and produced a mission brief. The CIA has authorized a black operation, codenamed Longshot. Target, Nikolai Volkov. Location, a compound outside Damascus. Shooting distance, 3,540 meters. The number hung in the air like smoke. Kate knew what it meant. The longest confirmed sniper kill in history was 3,540 meters, made by a Canadian Special Forces operator in Iraq. It was the absolute limit of what physics and human capability could achieve. Maybe beyond it. No one can make that shot, Kate said. Your father could have. Tom's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. He spent the last 5 years of his life working on it, modifying a rifle, developing custom ammunition, writing down every calculation, every variable, every lesson he learned. He knew Volkov was out there. He knew someone would need to finish what he started. Tom pulled a key from his pocket and held it out. He left something for you, in the safe deposit box at the bank in town, box 247. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I would give you this key when you were ready, when the time came to finish his work. Kate stared at the key. It was small and silver, and it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I'm not a soldier, she said. I never enlisted, never went through boot camp. I just shoot targets for veterans with PTSD. You're James Brennan's daughter. Tom pressed the key into her palm. You've been shooting since you were 9 years old. I've seen your scores. 1,800 meters, 2,000 meters. Groups so tight they look like one hole. Your father trained you for this, Katie. Maybe he didn't know it. Maybe you didn't know it. But everything he taught you was leading to this moment. Kate closed her fingers around the key. And if I say no, Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then Volkov lives. And your father's death goes unanswered. And in 4 months, I'll be dead, and the only 2 people who knew the truth will be gone. He paused. Your father was the best man I ever served with. He saved my life in Fallujah. He pulled me out of a burning Humvee when everyone else had written me off. I owe him this, Katie. I owe him justice. Kate looked past Tom toward the mountains that ringed her father's ranch. She had stood in these same mountains with her father when she was 12 years old. He had pointed at a ridgeline 2 miles away and told her that if she practiced every day, if she dedicated herself to the craft, she could learn to hit a target at that distance. She had laughed. It seemed impossible. But her father never lied to her. Where's the bank? Kate asked. An hour later, Kate stood in the small-town bank where her father had kept his accounts. The manager, a man who remembered James Brennan and offered his condolences every time Kate came in, led her to the vault. Box 247 sat in the middle row, unremarkable among the others. The key turned smoothly. Inside the box was a leather case, the kind used to carry expensive optics. Next to it was a thick notebook bound in worn canvas, its pages filled with her father's precise handwriting. And beneath that, a USB drive. Kate lifted the leather case out first. Inside was a rifle scope, unlike anything she had ever seen. The magnification range went far beyond standard military optics. The adjustment turrets were marked with calculations she barely understood. This was not equipment you could buy. This was something custom-built by someone who understood ballistics at a level few people in the world could match. The notebook was even more remarkable. Page after page of calculations, environmental data, bullet trajectory charts. Her father had been studying extreme long-range shooting for years, studying it with the obsession of a man who knew his life might depend on it. Kate turned to the last page of the notebook and found a letter written in her father's hand. Katie, if you're reading this, then Tom kept his promise, and I'm not around to tell you this myself. I'm sorry for that. I wanted to teach you these things in person. I wanted to see you become the shooter I know you can be. But if Tom gave you this key, it means the time has come. It means Nikolai Volkov has surfaced, and someone needs to end him. I tried, sweetheart. I tried to get close enough. But he knew I was coming. He was always one step ahead. That's why I spent the last years of my life building the tools you'll need to finish this. The rifle is in Tom's possession. It's a custom M2010 that I modified specifically for shots beyond 3,000 meters. The scope in this box is calibrated for it. The notebook contains everything I learned about extreme range shooting. Study it, learn it, trust it. I know I'm asking something terrible of you. I know I raised you to value life, to see shooting as a discipline and an art, not as a tool for killing. But Katie, Volkov is not just the man who killed me. He's a monster who traffics in human misery. He uses children as shields and refugees as commodities. If you can stop him, you'll save lives. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. I believe in you, sweetheart. I always have. You have my blood, you have my training, and now you have my tools. Finish what I started. Love always, Dad. Kate read the letter 3 times. Then she carefully folded it and placed it back in the notebook. Her hands did not shake. Her eyes were dry. There would be time for tears later. Now there was only the mission. She found Tom waiting outside the bank, leaning against his SUV. When he saw her carrying the case and notebook, something in his expression relaxed. He built me a rifle, Kate said. He built himself a rifle, Tom corrected, and then he modified it beyond anything I've ever seen. Wait until you see it. Where is it? My place. I've been keeping it in a climate-controlled safe. Your father made me promise I'd maintain it until you were ready. Tom opened the passenger door. Come on, we don't have much time. If we're going to make the window in Syria, we need to move. Kate hesitated. I haven't said yes yet. Yes, you have. Tom's voice was gentle. The moment you opened that box, you said yes. I know you, Katie. I watched you grow up. You're your father's daughter. You don't walk away from this kind of fight. Kate climbed into the SUV without another word. Tom's house was 40 minutes away, tucked into a valley where the pines grew thick and the nearest neighbor was 3 miles distant. Inside, the place had the Spartan quality of a career military man. No photographs, no decorations, just functional furniture and a gun safe that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. Tom worked the combination and pulled the heavy door open. Inside, racked vertically, was a rifle that took Kate's breath away. The M2010 was already an impressive weapon, the standard long-range platform for Army snipers. But what her father had done to it went far beyond standard. The barrel was longer, custom-made from match-grade steel. The stock had been completely rebuilt with adjustable everything. The trigger mechanism looked like it belonged in a laboratory, not a weapon. And the entire assembly had been balanced with a precision that spoke of hundreds of hours of careful work. He test-fired it exactly once, Tom said. 3,200 meters. Hit a man-sized target center mass. Then he packed it away and told me that the next person to fire it would be you. Kate reached out and touched the rifle's stock. Her father's hands had shaped this wood. His eye had looked through this scope. His finger had pulled this trigger. I'll need to practice, she said. I can't just walk into a mission cold. Already arranged. Tom pulled out a laptop and opened a map. There's a range in South Dakota, Black Hills, completely private, owned by a friend who owes me several favors. We can shoot out to 3,000 meters there. Maybe more if we use the canyon. How long do we have? 3 days to train, then we fly to Jordan. Insertion is across the Syrian border. We'll have a team. Ray Cooper, you remember him, he was your father's spotter in Iraq. Luis Gomez, best ammunition specialist in the Corps, and David Kane, intelligence and mission planning. Kate knew the names. These were men who had served with her father, men who had been at his funeral, men who had looked at her with pity in their eyes and told her what a great man James Brennan had been. They're all coming out of retirement for this, she asked. They're coming because it's for Jimmy. Tom closed the laptop. Your father saved each of their lives at one point or another. Ray in Fallujah, Luis in Ramadi, Kane in Kandahar. They all owe him, and more than that, they loved him. This isn't just a mission for them, Katie. It's a debt of honor. Kate lifted the rifle from the safe. It was heavy, but perfectly balanced. The weight settled into her shoulder like it had been made for her, which she supposed it had been. When do we leave for South Dakota? Tonight. We'll train hard for 2 days. Sleep one night, then we move. Tom paused. Katie, I need you to understand something. This isn't a sanctioned military operation. If anything goes wrong, if we're captured, the government will disavow us. There won't be a rescue. There won't be a trial. We'll just disappear. I understand. Do you? Tom's voice hardened. Because once you commit to this, there's no backing out. We're going into a war zone to kill a man from a distance that most people think is impossible. The margin for error is 0. One mistake, one miscalculation, and we all die. And we die knowing that we failed to give your father justice. Kate met his eyes. I'm not afraid of dying, Tom. I'm afraid of living the rest of my life knowing I could have done something and chose not to. Something in Tom's expression shifted. For the first time since he had arrived at her ranch, he smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. James would be so proud of you, he said quietly. The Black Hills training facility was everything Tom had promised. Miles of empty land, natural elevation changes, and most importantly, absolute privacy. The owner, a grizzled former Marine named Patterson, asked no questions and offered the use of his entire property. Kate spent the first 12 hours just studying her father's notebook. The level of detail was staggering. He had calculated ballistic coefficients for custom-loaded ammunition across dozens of temperature and altitude ranges. He had documented wind patterns in specific valleys. He had even accounted for the Coriolis effect, the way the rotation of the Earth could push a bullet off course over extreme distances. On the second page, he had written a note that made Kate pause. Katie, if you're reading this far, it means you're serious about learning this craft. Good. But understand that extreme range shooting isn't about the rifle. It's not about the scope or the ammunition, though those things matter. It's about the shooter's mind. At distances beyond 2,000 meters, you're not shooting at a target you can see clearly. You're shooting at a mathematical probability. You're trusting calculations more than your eyes. You're accepting that the bullet will be in the air for 6, 7, 8 seconds, trusting that the wind won't change, that the temperature will hold, that every variable you've accounted for will remain constant. That takes a kind of faith most people don't have. It takes the ability to commit absolutely to a shot, knowing that you won't see the result for nearly 10 seconds, knowing that if you're wrong, if you've miscalculated even slightly, you'll miss by feet or even yards. This is why so few people can do what we do. It's not physical, it's mental. It's the ability to trust the math even when every instinct is screaming at you that the shot is impossible. Kate read those words 3 times before moving on to the technical sections. Ray Cooper arrived on the second day. He was 62 now, his hair completely gray, and he walked with a slight limp from a knee that had been shattered in Fallujah and never quite healed right. But when he looked through a spotting scope, his eye was as sharp as it had been 30 years ago. Your daddy was the best shot I ever worked with, Ray told Kate as they set up at the 1,000-meter range. But he'd be the first to tell you that a sniper is only as good as his spotter. My job is to read the wind, call the shots, and keep you alive. You trust me, I'll trust you. Deal? Deal, Kate said. They spent 6 hours that day shooting. Ray would glass the target area, call wind speed and direction, and Kate would make the shot. At 1,000 meters, she was nearly perfect. 15 shots, 14 hits, all within a 6-inch group. At 1,500 meters, the challenge increased. The bullet drop was significant now. The wind had more time to push the round off course. Kate had to compensate for air density, temperature, even the angle of the sun affecting the mirage she saw through the scope. 10 shots, 8 hits. Not bad, Ray said. Your father would hit 9 out of 10 at this range, but he'd been doing it for 20 years. They pushed out to 2,000 meters on the 3rd day. At this distance, Kate could barely see the target even through her scope. It was a tiny speck against the hillside. The bullet flight time was over 4 seconds. She had to aim nearly 20 feet above the target just to account for gravity's pull. Her first shot missed by 3 feet, the second by 18 inches. The third hit, but barely. Ray watched through his spotting scope and made notes. Wind's tricky here, coming down the canyon in layers. You've got a crosswind at target level, but the bullet's passing through a headwind for the first half of the flight. Adjust 2 minutes right, 1 minute up. Kate made the corrections. Breathed, held, squeezed. The rifle bucked. 4.2 seconds later, Ray called it. Dead center, that's the way. They shot until Kate's shoulder was bruised and her trigger finger was numb. 15 rounds at 2,000 meters. 9 hits. 6 of them would have been kills on a man-sized target. That night, Tom called a meeting in the small cabin they had rented. Luis Gomez had arrived, carrying cases of custom-loaded ammunition. David Kane was on a laptop, reviewing satellite imagery of the target area in Syria. 3 days from now, Kane said, turning the laptop so everyone could see, Nikolai Volkov will be meeting with 2 other warlords at this compound. Intelligence says he'll arrive at 0600 and depart no later than 0700. That gives us a 1-hour window. The satellite image showed a cluster of buildings in a valley. Kane zoomed in on one structure in particular. This is where the meeting will take place. 2nd floor, eastern room. Our informant says Volkov will be visible through this window for approximately 90 seconds while he conducts a security check of the perimeter. What's the distance? Kate asked. 3,547 meters from the only viable shooting position. Kane pulled up a topographical map. We'll insert here. Move on foot 12 kilometers to this ridge. It's the only location with line of sight to the target that isn't crawling with hostiles. Elevation difference? Ray was already making notes. Shooting position is 847 meters above target elevation. Angle is roughly 15 degrees downward. Kate studied the map. The numbers her father had written in his notebook suddenly took on a new reality. This wasn't theoretical anymore. In 3 days, she would be lying on that ridge, looking through her scope at a man who had killed her father. And she would have one chance to make a shot that barely seemed possible. Tom coughed, a wet sound that turned into a prolonged fit. When he pulled his hand away from his mouth, there was blood on his palm. Everyone pretended not to notice. Weather forecast? Luis asked, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Clear skies. Temperature at 0600 should be 68 degrees at our position, slightly warmer at target elevation. Wind is the variable. Morning thermals in that valley can be unpredictable. I've loaded rounds for 3 different temperature bands, Luis said, opening one of his cases. These are based on your father's specifications, Kate. He developed a custom powder charge that optimizes velocity for the environmental conditions in that region. I've matched it exactly. Kate picked up one of the cartridges. It looked like standard .338 Lapua Magnum, but she could see the care that had gone into its construction. The bullet was seated with precision. The case mouth was perfectly uniform. This was ammunition built by someone who understood that at extreme range, even a variance of a few feet per second in muzzle velocity could mean the difference between a hit and a miss. We fly to Jordan tomorrow night, Tom said. 12-hour flight. We'll rest at a safe house, then cross into Syria after dark. 4-hour movement to the shooting position. Set up before dawn. Take the shot at first light. Then we extract as fast as possible. What's the exit strategy? Ray asked. Helicopter extraction. 6 kilometers from the shooting position. We'll have to move fast once the shot is taken. Every hostile in a 20-mile radius will converge on our location. And if we can't make it to the extract point? Tom's expression was grim. Then we die in Syria, but we die knowing we completed the mission. The room fell silent. Kate looked at each man in turn. Ray, who had known her since she was a child. Luis, who had taught her to reload ammunition when she was 16. Kane, who had sent her a card every year on her birthday after her father died. And Tom, who had carried the weight of her father's death for 14 years. We're really doing this, she said. It wasn't a question. We're really doing this, Tom confirmed. That night, Kate could not sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about her emir. She remembered the last time she had seen him. He had been preparing to deploy to Afghanistan. She was 24, fresh out of college, working at her first job. He had hugged her goodbye at the airport and told her he loved her, told her to take care of the ranch, told her he would be home in 6 months. He never mentioned Nikolai Volkov, never mentioned that he was hunting a ghost, never told her that he might not come back. Kate got up and walked outside. The South Dakota night was clear and cold, stars scattered across the sky in brilliant profusion. She thought about the shot she would have to make. 3,547 meters. Over 2 miles. The bullet would be in the air for nearly 7 seconds. 7 seconds to correct every mistake. 7 seconds to honor her father's memory. 7 seconds to give him justice. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Tom approaching. He moved slowly like a man much older than his 64 years. The cancer was eating him from the inside. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. Kate shook her head. Tom stood next to her, looking up at the same stars. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Your father talked about you all the time," Tom said finally. "Every mission, every deployment, he'd show pictures to anyone who would look. Tell stories about teaching you to shoot, about how you could outshoot most Marines by the time you were 16. He exaggerated." "No." Tom's voice was firm. "He didn't. I saw you shoot, Katie, when you were 18 at that competition in Wyoming. Your father made me drive 6 hours to watch. You placed third overall, beat men who had been shooting their entire lives. Your father was so proud he could barely speak." Kate felt her throat tighten. "I miss him." "I know." Tom paused. "I need to tell you something. About the day he died." Kate turned to look at him. Tom's face was shadowed, but she could see the pain in his eyes. "I sent him on that mission," Tom said. "I was the commanding officer. I looked at the intelligence, I approved the convoy route, and when the report came back that he was dead, I signed off on the official story. The IED, the heroic sacrifice. All of it." "You didn't know it was a lie," Kate said. "I should have." Tom's voice broke. "I should have questioned it, should have pushed for a real investigation. But I didn't. I accepted the convenient answer because the truth was too complicated, too dangerous. And for 14 years, I've lived with that." Tom turned to face her fully. "I'm dying, Katie, and I'm scared. Not of the cancer. I made my peace with that, but I'm scared of dying without making this right, without giving your father the justice he deserves. That's why I need you. Not because you're a good shot, but because you're the only person left who loves him enough to see this through." Kate reached out and took Tom's hand. His skin was cool, his grip weak. "We'll finish this," she said, "for him." Tom nodded. He squeezed her hand once, then released it and walked back toward the cabin. Kate watched him go, this old soldier who had carried so much weight for so long. Then she turned back to the stars and made a silent promise to her father. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, that she would put a bullet in Nikolai Volkov, and she would make sure the world knew why. The next morning, Kate took her last practice shots. Ray set up at the maximum distance the range allowed, 3,000 meters. The target was barely visible, even with high-power optics. Kate settled behind her father's rifle. The familiar weight, the perfectly adjusted stock, the scope that seemed to see through time itself. "Wind is 4.3 miles per hour, left to right," Ray called. "Temperature 62 degrees, barometric pressure 29.8, humidity 38%. Kate did the math in her head, cross-referencing with her father's notes. The corrections needed were extreme. She adjusted the scope, taking several minutes to get everything exactly right. "Send it," Ray said. Kate controlled her breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Her heart rate slowed. The world narrowed to just the crosshairs and the tiny speck of the target. She pressed the trigger. The rifle roared. The bullet flew. 6.8 seconds of flight time. An eternity. Kate kept her eye to the scope, watching for the impact. Ray's voice came through, steady and calm. "Impact. Center mass. That's a kill." Kate exhaled slowly. Her father had been right. The rifle worked. The calculations worked. She could make the shot. Now she just had to do it when it mattered. When a man's life hung in the balance. When failure meant her father's death would go unavenged. They packed that afternoon. The rifle went into a hard case. The ammunition into another. Kate carried her father's notebook in her pack, along with the scope and every other piece of equipment she would need. At the small regional airport, a civilian cargo plane waited. No markings, no identification. Just a pilot who asked no questions and a loadmaster who helped them secure their gear. Tom settled into a seat near the front, already looking exhausted. Ray sat next to Kate, reviewing maps one more time. Luis was checking and rechecking the ammunition. Kane was on an encrypted satellite phone, getting final intelligence updates. As the plane took off, Kate looked out the window at South Dakota falling away below. Somewhere down there was the ranch where her father had raised her, the mountains where he had taught her to shoot, the land where he had dreamed of coming home. She pressed her hand against the window. "I'm coming, Dad," she whispered. "I'm going to finish it." The flight to Jordan took 12 hours. Kate tried to sleep but could not. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's face. Saw him teaching her to calculate bullet drop when she was 11. Saw him explaining wind drift when she was 14. Saw him handing her his favorite rifle when she turned 18 and telling her she was ready. Ready for what? She had asked. Ready for whatever comes, he had answered. Halfway through the flight, Tom started coughing again. This time it was worse. His whole body shook with it. Ray and Luis helped him to the bathroom. When he came out 10 minutes later, his face was pale and there was blood on his shirt. I'm fine, Tom said before anyone could ask. Just need to rest. But Kate saw the truth in his eyes. Tom was dying faster than anyone had expected. The mission timeline suddenly took on a new urgency. They had to complete this soon, or Tom would not live to see it finished. The plane landed in Jordan just after midnight local time. A CIA handler met them on the tarmac, a woman named Sarah Price, who looked at them with the cold assessment of someone who dealt in deniable assets. Your safe house is ready, Price said. You'll have 12 hours to rest and do final preparations. Then we move you to the border. After that, you're on your own. If you're captured, we don't know you. If you're killed, we never heard of you. Understood? Understood, Tom said. Price handed Kane a satellite phone. This is for emergencies only. And I do mean emergencies. Once you cross into Syria, you're ghosts. We can't help you. We won't help you. You complete the mission and get out, or you don't come back at all. She walked away without another word. Luis watched her go and shook his head. Warm personality, he muttered. She's CIA, Ray said. They're not paid to be warm. The safe house was a concrete bunker tucked into a hillside 20 miles from the Syrian border. Spartan, functional. Designed for people who were just passing through on their way to somewhere much worse. Kate set up her gear in one corner and began the ritual of preparing the rifle, cleaning every surface, checking every screw, making sure the scope was still perfectly zeroed after the long flight. Ray joined her after an hour. An hour, bringing 2 cups of bitter coffee. Your old man taught me how to spot, Ray said, settling down next to her. Back in Fallujah, 2004, I was just a grunt with good eyes. He took the time to train me, explained how to read mirage, how to judge wind at different distances. He was patient, never got frustrated, even when I screwed up. That sounds like him, Kate said. He saved my life, during the Second Battle of Fallujah. We were pinned down by a machine gun nest. Jimmy crawled 200 meters under fire, got into position, and took out the gunner with one shot. The insurgents scattered. The whole squad got out alive because of him. Ray took a sip of his coffee. I'm not doing this mission because Tom asked me to. I'm doing it because I owe your father my life. And because if the roles were reversed, Jimmy would do the same for me. Kate nodded. She understood. This was more than revenge. It was about honor, about the bonds forged between men who had faced death together, about paying debts that could never truly be repaid. Across the room, Tom was lying on a cot, his breathing labored. Kane sat next to him, talking in low tones. Kate could not hear what they were saying, but she saw Tom shake his head firmly. Whatever Kane was suggesting, Tom was refusing. Luis approached with the final ammunition loadout. I've prepared 18 rounds, he said, 6 for each temperature band. That should give you enough for practice shots in the actual engagement, with a few rounds to spare for emergencies. Emergencies? If something goes wrong, if you need to defend the position, if God forbid you have to take more than one shot at the target. Luis's expression was serious. I pray you only need 1 round, Kate. But I've been doing this long enough to know that missions never go exactly as planned. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of final preparations. Kane walked them through the infiltration route one more time. Ray rehearsed communication protocols. Luis distributed ammunition and emergency supplies. Tom tried to participate, but his strength was clearly fading. At 1800 hours, they loaded into a beat-up cargo truck that looked like it had been through several wars. The driver was a local asset, a man who asked no questions and spoke no English. He drove them toward the border as the sun set over the desert. The crossing into Syria was anticlimactic. No guards, no checkpoints, just a gap in a fence that had been cut years ago and never repaired. They slipped through like ghosts, and suddenly they were in a war zone. The 12-kilometer hike to the shooting position took 4 hours. They moved in complete silence, using night vision to navigate the rocky terrain. Twice they had to detour around settlements. Once they had to freeze in place as a patrol passed within 50 meters. Kate carried her father's rifle and 60 pounds of gear. Her shoulders ached. Her legs burned, but she pushed forward, step after step, knowing that every meter brought her closer to completing her father's mission. At 0200, they reached the ridge. The position was exactly as the satellite imagery had shown, a rocky outcrop with a clear line of sight to the valley below. Kane immediately began setting up security while Ray established the shooting position. Kate assembled the rifle by feel, her hands moving through the familiar motions. Scope mounted, bipod deployed, cheek rest adjusted, every component checked and double-checked. Through her scope, she could see the compound where Nikolai Volkov would appear in 4 hours. The distance was staggering. Even with maximum magnification, the building looked tiny. The window where he would stand was barely visible. Ray settled in next to her with the spotting scope. Range is 3,547 meters. Confirmed. Angle is 14.8 degrees down. Temperature is 63 degrees and dropping. Wind appears calm, but that'll change when the sun comes up. They waited. In the darkness. In the silence. 5 people on a ridge in a foreign country, preparing to kill a man from a distance that seemed impossible. Tom sat behind them, monitoring the radio. His breathing had become a wet rattle. Kate knew without asking that this would be his last mission. Win or lose, Tom Hartley would not be making the return trip. As the sky began to lighten in the east, Kate thought about her father, about the last words of his letter. "I believe in you, sweetheart. I always have." She chambered around. The bolt slid home with a solid click. "Sun's coming up," Ray whispered. "Target window opens in 15 minutes. Kate settled into her shooting position. The rifle felt like an extension of her body. The crosshairs were steady on the distant building. And then Tom made a sound, a gasp, a choke. Kate turned to see him doubled over, blood pouring from his mouth. Kane was there in an instant, supporting him. But they all knew. This was it. The cancer had finally won. Tom looked at Kate through eyes that were already fading. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. He reached for her hand and squeezed it once, hard. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed. Kane checked for a pulse, shook his head. "He's gone." Kate felt the world tilt. Tom was dead. The man who had brought her here, the man who had known her father better than anyone. Gone with his mission incomplete. "Kate," Ray's voice was urgent. "Target window in 10 minutes. We can grieve later. Right now, we have a job to do." Kate forced herself to focus. Tom had died to get her here. Her father had died planning for this moment. She would not let them down. "Give me Win," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. Ray looked through his spotting scope. Wind is 3.2 miles per hour from the southeast. Temperature is 68 degrees. Barometric pressure is stable. You're good to engage. Kate made the calculations. The adjustments, the compensations for every variable her father had taught her to consider. The scope clicked as she dialed in the correct elevation and windage. "Target building is active," Kane reported. "Multiple individuals visible. Stand by for positive identification." The minutes crawled past. Kate kept her breathing controlled, her heart rate low. The crosshairs never wavered from the window where Nikolai Volkov would appear. And then he was there. Through the scope, at a maximum magnification, Kate saw him. Nikolai Volkov, tall, gray beard, moving with the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. He walked to the window and placed both hands on the frame, looking out over the valley. Looking at the same sunrise Kate was watching, breathing the same air, living the same moment, not knowing that 2 miles away his death was waiting. "Positive identification," Kane whispered. "That's Volkov." "Wind holding steady," Ray said. "You are clear to engage." Kate's finger found the trigger. She took one breath, let half of it out, and squeezed. The rifle roared. The muzzle flash bloomed. The massive recoil pushed her back. And for 6.8 seconds, the world held its breath. Ray was counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then through his spotting scope, he saw it. But what he saw made his voice catch. And that hesitation told Kate everything she needed to know. Something was wrong. Ray's voice came through thin and uncertain. "I can't confirm impact. Target area is obscured." Kate kept her eye pressed to the scope, her heart hammering against the rocky ground. Through the magnification, she watched the window where Nikolai Volkov had been standing. Smoke or dust seemed to cloud the opening. She couldn't see the body, couldn't see anything definitive. "Time check," Kane said from behind them. Ray consulted his watch. 31 seconds since shot. Target should still be in window for another 59 seconds based on established pattern. But the window remained empty, just that strange haze like heat shimmer obscuring their view. Kate worked the bolt, chambering another round. Her training took over, pushing down the panic that threatened to rise. "Give me a second shot opportunity." "Negative," Kane said. "Activity in the compound. Personnel moving between buildings. No panic movements, but definitely increased alertness." "They heard the shot," Ray muttered. "Sound carries different in mountain terrain. They probably can't pinpoint our location, but they know someone fired from this general direction." Kate's finger rested on the trigger guard. Every instinct screamed at her to fire again, to make certain. But Kane was right. The element of surprise was gone. A second shot would only confirm their position without guaranteeing a hit. "We need to move," Louise said, already packing Tom's body into a poncho liner. The old Marine's face was peaceful now, the pain finally gone. Louise worked with the gentle efficiency of someone who had done this too many times before. Kate reluctantly pulled back from the rifle. She began breaking down the weapon, her hands moving through the familiar sequence even as her mind raced. Had she missed? At 3,547 meters, even a perfect shot could be pushed off target by a gust of wind she hadn't anticipated. Or had she hit him? Was Volkov lying dead on the floor of that room while his men scrambled to respond? "Extraction point is 6 kilometers southeast," Kane said, studying his GPS. "We need to cover that ground in under 90 minutes to make our window." They moved fast, 4 people carrying their gear, and Tom's body through terrain that seemed determined to kill him. The rocks were loose and treacherous. The slope was steep enough that one wrong step could mean a fatal fall, and behind them, Kate could hear the distant sound of vehicles starting up in the compound below. "They're mobilizing," Kane reported, glancing back. 3 vehicles, possibly more. "Looks like they're setting up search patterns." Ray was breathing hard, his 62-year-old lungs struggling with the altitude and the pace. But he kept moving, one foot in front of the other, never complaining. Luis carried the bulk of Tom's weight, his wounded shoulder from the Lebanon operation years ago causing him to grimace with each step. Kate carried her father's rifle in her own pack, nearly 80 pounds total. The weight should have been crushing, but she barely felt it. Her entire focus was on the extraction point, on getting her team out alive, on completing the mission her father had started. They had covered 3 kilometers when Kane's radio crackled to life. Not the emergency satellite phone. The tactical radio they had been told to maintain silence on unless absolutely necessary. A woman's voice came through, cold and professional. Agent Sarah Price from the CIA. "Crosshair, this is Overwatch. Confirm mission status." Kane looked at Kate. She nodded. He keyed the radio. "Overwatch, this is Crosshair. Shot taken at target. Cannot confirm kill. Extraction in progress." There was a pause. Too long. When Price spoke again, her tone had changed. Subtly, but Kate caught it. "Crosshair, be advised. We have received independent confirmation. Target is neutralized. Mission success. Proceed to extraction point, Charlie." Kate felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost made her stumble. She had done it. Despite the uncertainty, despite the impossibility of the shot, she had put a bullet in the man who killed her father. But then Ray spoke, his voice quiet. "Something's wrong." "What?" Kate asked. "How does she have independent confirmation? We just took the shot 20 minutes ago. There's no way the CIA has assets close enough to verify that fast." Kane was already thinking the same thing. She's right. Even if they had someone on the ground in that compound, which is unlikely, the chaos of the response would make confirmation impossible this quickly. Louise shifted Tom's weight. Maybe they had a drone overhead. Thermal imaging could have caught it. "Maybe," Ray said, but he didn't sound convinced. They continued moving, but Kate's relief had curdled into something else. Suspicion. The pieces didn't fit together quite right, like a rifle scope that was almost zeroed but not quite. The extraction point was a clearing in a valley, surrounded by rocky outcrops that provided both concealment and defensible positions. They arrived with 40 minutes to spare before the scheduled helicopter pickup. Kane immediately established a security perimeter while Ray set up an observation post. Kate sat next to Tom's body, her hand resting on the poncho liner that covered him. The old colonel looked smaller in death, diminished. She thought about his last moments. The blood, the desperate attempt to speak. What had he been trying to tell her? "Kate," Ray's voice cut through her thoughts. "You need to see this." She joined him at the observation post. He handed her a pair of binoculars and pointed toward the compound they had just left. Through the optics, Kate could see a scene that made her blood run cold. The compound was swarming with activity. But it wasn't the panicked chaos of men who had just lost their leader. It was organized, methodical. Search teams were forming up, yes, but there was something rehearsed about their movements. And more troubling, she could see the window where Volkov had been standing. It was visible now, the strange haze cleared, and through that window she could see into the room. There was no body, no blood, no sign of any impact at all. "I don't understand," Kate said. "Price confirmed the kill." "Look at the trajectory," Ray said. He had his spotting scope set up, tracking the angle from their former position to the target. "Your shot was perfect. I watched the bullet path through Mirage. It should have impacted that room. Should have gone through that window and hit anything standing in the center. But it didn't." "Or it did," Kane said, joining them. He had his laptop out, displaying satellite imagery, and someone cleaned up the scene very quickly. Too quickly. Luis was the one who said what they were all thinking. "We've been played." Before anyone could respond, the satellite phone rang, not the tactical radio, the emergency phone that Price had given them with explicit instructions to use only in dire circumstances. Kane answered it. "Put it on speaker." Agent Price's voice came through, but this time there was no pretense of professionalism. "Team Crosshair, you are ordered to remain at your current position. Do not, I repeat, do not proceed to extraction point Charlie." "What's going on, Price?" Kane demanded. "New intelligence. The extraction zone is compromised. Multiple hostiles converging on that location. If you go there, you'll be walking into an ambush." Ray and Kate exchanged glances. Something was very wrong. "Give us an alternate extraction point," Kane said. "Working on it. Stand by at your current location. We'll have new coordinates within the hour." The line went dead. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Luis said what they were all thinking. "She's lying." "How do you know?" Kate asked. "Because I've been lied to by the CIA before," Luis said. His face was grim. "In Ramadi, 2006, they told us an extraction point was compromised. Told us to wait for new coordinates. Turns out they were buying time to reposition assets. By the time we figured it out, 3 of our guys were dead." Kane was already moving, packing up the satellite phone and laptop. "We need to leave. Now, if Price is trying to delay us, it means someone is coming, and they're not coming to give us medals." They moved fast, abandoning the extraction point and heading deeper into the Syrian wilderness. Kate's mind was racing, trying to piece together what was happening. Price had confirmed Volkov was dead, but there was no body, no evidence of impact, and now she was trying to keep them from leaving Syria. None of it made sense unless, "What if I didn't kill him?" Kate said. The others stopped, turned to look at her. "What if someone else did?" she continued. "What if there was another shooter? Someone who took the shot before me or after me and actually hit the target?" Ray's eyes widened. That would explain the confirmation. If the CIA had their own sniper in position, they'd know immediately if Volkov was dead. "But why not tell us?" Luis asked. Kane understood first. Because they don't want anyone to know the CIA was involved. They needed a scapegoat, someone to take credit for the kill while they operated in the shadows. "Us," Kate said, "they used us as cover." The implications were staggering. The entire mission had been a setup. Not to kill Volkov, though that had clearly been the goal, but to provide plausible deniability for the CIA's involvement. Tom had thought he was sending Kate to honor her father's memory. Instead, he had walked her straight into a conspiracy. "Tom knew," Ray said quietly. "That's why he was trying to tell you something before he died. He figured it out." Kate thought back to those last moments. Tom's desperate attempt to speak, the way he had looked at her, trying to communicate something urgent. He had discovered the truth too late. And now he was dead, unable to tell her what he had learned. They found shelter in a cave system 2 kilometers from the original extraction point. Kane set up the laptop and began accessing encrypted files, trying to find any information about what was really happening. Ray kept watch. Luis tended to minor injuries they had all sustained during the movement. Kate sat apart from the others, cleaning her father's rifle. The familiar motions calmed her, gave her something to focus on besides the growing sense of betrayal. Her father had built this weapon to kill Nikolai Volkov, had spent years preparing for a shot that he never got to take, and now Kate had taken it for him. But had she hit, or had the CIA robbed her of even that small victory? "Kate," Kane's voice was tight, "you need to see this." She joined him at the laptop. On the screen was a series of encrypted files that Kane had somehow accessed. He scrolled through them, his face growing darker with each page. "This is a CIA operation log," Kane explained. "Goes back 6 months. It's all here. Operation Longshot. Target, Nikolai Volkov. But look at the operational structure." Kate read over his shoulder. The file listed personnel assignments, logistics, timeline, and there, buried in the details, was the truth. Operation Longshot had two teams, Alpha Team and Bravo Team. Alpha Team was them, Kate, Tom, Ray, Luis, and Kane, listed as civilian contractors operating without official oversight. Bravo Team was CIA, three operatives, primary sniper, Agent Jake Dalton, spotter, Agent Mendez, security, Agent Torres. They had been positioned at a different location with a shooting distance of only 1,800 meters, much easier than Kate's 3,547. They had a backup plan, Kate said, her voice hollow. If I missed, or if I didn't take the shot, they had someone else ready. It's worse than that, Kane said. He pulled up another file. Look at the timeline. Bravo Team was authorized to engage 2.2 seconds before you were cleared to shoot. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. 2.2 seconds. At the distances involved, that meant the CIA's bullet had reached Volkov before Kate's. She hadn't killed him. She had shot at a dead man. Ray leaned over to read the file. His face went pale. They knew. Tom knew about this. That's what he was trying to tell you. Kate's hands clenched into fists. How long had he known? Kane scrolled through the files. Based on these emails, he discovered the truth about 3 days ago, right before we deployed to South Dakota. He knew we were being used, Luis said, and he sent us anyway. No, Kate's voice was firm. He sent us because he thought we could still complete the mission. He wanted me to take that shot regardless of what the CIA was doing, because it was about more than just killing Volkov. It was about proving I could do what my father had trained me to do. She stood, pacing the small cave. Tom was dying. He had weeks, maybe days left. He spent that time making sure I would have the chance to honor my father, even if it meant walking into a CIA trap. Then why not tell you, Ray asked. Kate thought about it, about Tom's character, about the weight he had carried for 14 years. Because if he told me, I might not have taken the shot. I might have refused to be part of their game. She looked at the others. Tom knew that my father deserved justice, even if that justice came from CIA bullets instead of mine. He was willing to sacrifice his own honor and ours to make sure Volkov died. The cave fell silent. Outside, the Syrian night was falling. Somewhere in the darkness, men with guns were searching for them. And back in Langley, Virginia, CIA officials were probably already writing the after-action report that would paint Kate's team as the heroes who had eliminated a high-value target. A lie built on top of a lie, built on top of a grave. We need to get out of Syria, Kane said. Price isn't going to send an extraction. We're on our own. How far to the nearest border? Luis asked. Turkey is 80 kilometers north. Jordan is 60 kilometers south. Both involve crossing through hostile territory. Kane looked at their supplies. We have enough water for 2 days if we ration, food for 3, and we're carrying a body. They all looked at Tom's poncho-wrapped form. The old colonel deserved better than to be left in a Syrian cave, but carrying him would slow them down, make them more visible, decrease their chances of escape. Kate made the decision. We carry him, all the way to wherever we're going. Tom died getting us here. The least we can do is bring him home. No one argued. They moved out at midnight, using night vision to navigate the treacherous terrain. Kate took point, her father's rifle slung across her back. Ray and Luis carried Tom between them. Kane brought up the rear, watching their six for any pursuit. The first 8 hours passed without incident. They covered 20 kilometers, putting distance between themselves and the search teams. But as the sun rose, they had to find shelter. Moving in daylight was suicide. They holed up in an abandoned village, one of thousands scattered across Syria's war-torn landscape. The buildings were ruins, walls pocked with bullet holes, roofs collapsed from artillery strikes. But one structure remained mostly intact, a small house that offered concealment and a view of the surrounding area. Ray set up watch while the others rested. Kate couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her father, about Tom, about all the lies that had led them to this moment. Luis sat down next to her, offering a canteen. Your old man would be proud, you know. Of what? Missing the shot? You didn't miss, Luis said. I saw your form, your breathing, your trigger press. That was a perfect shot, Kate, perfect technique on an impossible target. The fact that someone else's bullet got there first doesn't change what you accomplished. It changes everything, Kate said. The whole point was to give my father justice, to finish what he started. But I didn't finish anything. The CIA did. Luis was quiet for a moment. Then he said, James didn't build that rifle to kill one man. He built it to prove something was possible, to push the boundaries of what a shooter could achieve. You took a 3,000-meter shot and made it count. You did exactly what he trained you to do. But Volkov was already dead. That's not your failure. That's the CIA being the CIA, manipulating people, using good soldiers for their own agenda. Luis's voice hardened. Your father spent his whole career dealing with their bullshit. He'd tell you the same thing I'm telling you now. Don't let them take this from you. Don't let them make you doubt what you accomplished. Kate wanted to believe him, but the hollow feeling in her chest wouldn't go away. Kane's voice cut through the moment. We've got movement, 2 vehicles, coming from the south. Everyone went to full alert. Ray got on the spotting scope while Kate positioned herself at a window with her rifle. Through the scope, she could see 2 black SUVs approaching the village, moving slowly and carefully. Could be locals, Luis suggested. Locals don't drive brand new Suburbans, Ray said. Those are security vehicles, professional grade. The SUVs stopped at the edge of the village. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a door opened and a woman stepped out. Even at 800 meters, Kate recognized her. Agent Sarah Price. But Price wasn't alone. 4 men exited the vehicles with her, all armed with assault rifles. They moved like military, covering angles and communicating with hand signals. And then Kate saw something that made her heart stop. One of the men was carrying a rifle case, the specific size and shape that could only mean one thing, a sniper rifle. They're not here to extract us, Kane said. They're here to clean up loose ends. Ray's voice was calm, but Kate heard the edge underneath. We're the loose ends. The tactical situation was clear. Price and her team had come to eliminate witnesses. Kate's team knew too much about Operation Longshot, about the CIA's involvement, about the lies that had been told. Dead men tell no tales. And in Syria, where the fog of war could explain anything, 5 bodies would barely register. We can't fight our way out, Luis said, assessing their tactical position. We're outnumbered, low on ammunition, and they have the high ground if they choose to take it. Then we don't fight, Kate said. We talk. She stood up, moving to the window where Price could see her, raised her hands, made herself visible. Price spotted her immediately. Even from this distance, Kate could read the surprise on the CIA agent's face. She clearly hadn't expected them to be here, in this village, had probably been searching randomly, hoping to stumble across them before they made it to a border. Kate cupped her hands and shouted across the distance, We know about Bravo Team. We know about Agent Dalton. We know everything. Price stood very still. Then she raised a radio to her mouth. Moments later, Kane's satellite phone buzzed. He put it on speaker. Ms. Brennan, Price's voice was controlled, professional. I'm impressed you made it this far. Most civilian contractors would have panicked and gotten themselves killed by now. We're not most contractors, Kate said. And we both know this was never about contracting. This was about covering up a CIA operation. I don't know what you think you've discovered. Don't. Kate's voice cut like a blade. We have the operation logs. We know about the 2-team structure. We know your sniper killed Volkov, not me. We know we were the cover story all along. Silence on the other end. Then, if you know all that, Ms. Brennan, you must also know that I can't let you leave Syria. You understand the concept of operational security. I understand you're planning to kill us. I'm planning to protect American interests, Price corrected. Your team knew the risks when you accepted this mission. Deniable assets, no official recognition, that was the deal. Tom Hartley is dead, Kate said. Ray Cooper, Luis Gomez, David Kane and I are all that's left. You want to add 4 more bodies to your count? I want to ensure that classified information remains classified. If that requires unfortunate casualties in a combat zone, then that's what the mission demands. Kate felt rage building in her chest. This woman was talking about murdering them with the same tone someone might use to discuss quarterly budget reports. There's another option, Kate said. I'm listening. You let us go. We cross into Turkey, we go home, and we never speak about what happened here. We take the official story. I killed Volkov with a 3,000-meter shot. You get your headlines, we get our lives. Price seemed to consider this. And I'm supposed to trust you? You're supposed to trust that we're Marines. We understand operational security. We understand that some things can't be made public. But we also understand honor. You give us your word that we can leave, and we'll keep your secrets. Another long pause. Kate could almost hear Price calculating odds, weighing options, running through scenarios. I don't make deals with people who have no leverage, Price said finally. We have plenty of leverage, Kane cut in. He held up his laptop. All those operation logs you think are secure? I copied them, encrypted them, and set up a dead man switch. If we don't check in every 12 hours, those files get automatically uploaded to every major news outlet in America. WikiLeaks, the New York Times, Washington Post, all of them. It was a bluff. Kane hadn't had time to set up anything that sophisticated. But Price didn't know that. You're lying, Price said. But there was uncertainty in her voice. Try us, Kane replied. Don't extract us. See what happens when those files go public. See how long you keep your job when Congress starts asking questions about unauthorized operations in Syria. The silence stretched out. Kate could see Price talking to her team, gesturing. The men with rifles shifted nervously, unsure of their orders. Finally, Price spoke again. If I agree to this, I need guarantees, real ones, not just your word. What do you want? Kate asked. The files Kane copied, deleted, right now, with me watching. Kane looked at Kate. She nodded. He turned the laptop so its camera faced him and began deleting the files, making a show of each one disappearing from his hard drive. Satisfied? Kane asked. Not quite, Price said. There's still the matter of what you've seen, what you know. I need insurance that you won't talk. What kind of insurance? Price smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. The same kind I have on every asset who knows too much. Leverage, dirt, something that keeps people quiet. She gestured to one of her men. He pulled out a camera and began photographing the village. The bodies and poncho liners, the weapons. Evidence that could be spun any number of ways. Here's how this works, Price said. You'll sign statements saying that everything that happened here was authorized, that you acted under CIA direction, that any casualties were the result of legitimate combat operations. Those statements become my insurance. If you ever talk about Bravo team, if you ever hint at what really happened, I release those statements and you all go to prison for conducting unauthorized military operations on foreign soil. Kate felt sick, but she also understood. This was how the game was played. Everyone got dirt on everyone else. Mutually assured destruction replaced by mutually assured prosecution. Fine, Kate said. Send over the statements. We'll sign. One more thing, Price added. Colonel Hartley's body, it stays here. He died in combat against Syrian hostiles while conducting a classified operation. That's the official story. We can't have an autopsy raising questions about cancer, about his real reasons for being here. No, Kate's voice was flat. We're bringing him home. That's not negotiable. Neither is this. Kate raised her rifle, pointing it not at Price, but at the man carrying the sniper rifle case. That case contains evidence of Bravo team, the rifle that actually killed Volkov. Ballistic forensics could prove it wasn't my gun. I'm guessing you don't want that weapon falling into the wrong hands. Price's face hardened. You wouldn't. Try me. I've already lost my father and my mentor. I've got nothing left to lose except my honor. And that honor says I bring Tom Hartley home for burial. They stared at each other across 800 meters. Two women engaged in a battle of wills that had nothing to do with rifles or bullets. Finally, Price lowered her radio. Fine, take Hartley. But the statements still stand. And Ms. Brennan, if you ever, and I mean ever, discuss what happened here, I will bury you so deep that you'll wish you died in this village. Understood, Kate said. The extraction that followed was surreal. Price's team provided vehicles to carry them to the Turkish border. No one spoke during the drive. Kate sat in the back of the SUV, her hand resting on Tom's body, watching the Syrian landscape roll past. They had come here to kill the man who murdered her father. And in a twisted way, that mission had been accomplished. Nikolai Volkov was dead. Justice, after a fashion, had been served. But it felt hollow, tainted, like a victory won by someone else that she was being forced to claim. At the Turkish border, Price handed Kate a folder. Inside were the statements she had promised, along with official documentation declaring that Operation Longshot had been a success, that Katherine Brennan had made a confirmed kill at 3,547 meters. A new world record. Congratulations, Price said. The word dripped with irony. You're a hero. Kate took the folder without responding. She climbed into the waiting helicopter with her team, and they lifted off, leaving Syria behind. As they flew toward the American airbase in Turkey, Kate opened the folder and began reading the official report. It was all there, her shot, her achievement, her record. All lies. Ray sat down next to her. You okay? I don't know, Kate admitted. I did everything right. Made the shot my father trained me to make. And it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It matters to us, Louise said from across the cabin. We saw what you did. We know the truth. The truth, Kate said bitterly. The truth is that my father spent years preparing to kill one man. And when the moment came, the CIA didn't trust us to do it. They had their own shooter, their own plan. We were just the cover story. Kane closed his laptop. Maybe, or maybe Tom knew that all along and decided your education was more important than your pride. Maybe he wanted you to prove you could make that shot, regardless of whether it was the killing bullet. Maybe the shot itself was the point, not the kill. Kate thought about that, thought about her father's letter, about his notebook full of calculations, about the rifle he had built not for himself but for her. Maybe Kane was right. Maybe this had never been about revenge. Maybe it had been about legacy, about passing on knowledge and skill from one generation to the next, about a father teaching his daughter to do the impossible, even if he wouldn't be there to see it. The helicopter touched down at the airbase 6 hours later. Medical personnel were waiting to take Tom's body. Military police were there to debrief them. And in the distance, Kate could see a man in a suit who could only be CIA, there to make sure their stories aligned with the official version. As they walked across the tarmac, Louise leaned close to Kate. What are you going to do now? Kate looked at her father's rifle, still in its case, still smelling of gunpowder from that impossible shot. I'm going to go home. I'm going to bury Tom Hartley with full honors. And then I'm going to keep teaching veterans how to shoot. That's it? Ray asked. After everything that happened, you're just going back to the ranch? What else is there? Kate asked. The mission is over. Volkov is dead. Tom is dead. My father is still dead. Going back is all I have left. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. Because 3 days later, back in Montana, standing at Tom Hartley's funeral with a folded flag in her hands, Kate received a text message from an unknown number. It was a photograph, a security camera image, time-stamped from the morning of the Syria operation. And in that image, Kate could clearly see two things. First, herself lying behind her rifle on that ridge, taking aim at Nikolai Volkov. Second, in the far background, barely visible, was another sniper position. And through digital enhancement, she could make out a figure behind a rifle scope. But what made Kate's blood run cold was the notation someone had added to the image, an arrow pointing to that second sniper position in a single line of text. This is Jake Dalton. He killed your father. The text message continued. If you want the truth about James Brennan's death, come to the coordinates below. Come alone. You have 48 hours. Kate stared at the message for a long time. Then she looked at Tom's coffin, draped with an American flag. The mission wasn't over after all. It was just beginning. The coordinates led to a diner outside Roanoke, Virginia, one of those places that existed in the cracks between highways, serving coffee that tasted like motor oil and pie that somehow made up for it. Kate arrived at dawn 2 days after Tom Hartley's funeral, driving a rental car she had paid for in cash. She had not told Ray, Louise, or Kane about the message. This was something she needed to face alone. If Jake Dalton really had killed her father, if the man who had pulled the trigger was sitting in that diner waiting for her, then whatever happened next could not involve the others. They had sacrificed enough. The diner's parking lot held 3 vehicles. A semi-truck, its driver probably grabbing breakfast before the next haul. A station wagon with Montana plates covered in the dust of long miles. And a black sedan that screamed federal government despite having no markings. Kate checked her pistol, a Glock 19 she carried in an inside-the-waistband holster. 15 rounds. She hoped she would not need them, but hope was a luxury she could no longer afford. The bell above the door chimed as she entered. The trucker sat at the counter, focused on his eggs. An elderly couple occupied a corner booth, holding hands across the table in the way people do when they have been married for 50 years. And in the back booth, facing the door with a paranoia of someone who had spent too long in the field, sat a man Kate recognized from the enhanced photograph. Jake Dalton looked younger than she expected. Maybe 45, with the kind of face that belonged to a high school football coach or a small-town sheriff. Clean-shaven, short hair going gray at the temples. Eyes that had seen things they could never unsee. Kate walked to his booth and sat down across from him without invitation. Dalton did not seem surprised. He simply pushed a menu toward her. The pie is actually decent, he said. His voice was quiet, controlled. I recommend the apple. I didn't come here for pie. I know. Dalton folded his hands on the table. But you should eat anyway. This conversation is going to take a while, and you'll need your strength for what comes after. A waitress appeared, an older woman with kind eyes and tired feet. Kate ordered coffee just to make her go away. Dalton asked for a refill on his own cup. When they were alone again, Kate leaned forward. Did you kill my father? Dalton held her gaze. Yes. The admission hung in the air between them. Kate felt something cold and sharp twist in her chest. She had known intellectually since receiving the message. But hearing the words spoken aloud made it real in a way that satellite photos and encrypted files never could. Why? Her voice came out steady despite the rage building inside her. Because I was ordered to. Dalton took a sip of coffee. September 23, 2011. My handler gave me a file. The target was Sergeant Major James Brennan, United States Marine Corps. The justification was classified. I had 48 hours to make the shot and disappear. And you just did it, no questions asked? I asked plenty of questions. I was told that Brennan had discovered classified information that threatened national security, that he was planning to leak it to journalists, that removing him was the only way to protect American lives. Dalton set down his cup. I believed them, or I wanted to believe them. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes. Kate's hand moved toward her pistol. Dalton saw the motion but did not react. He simply watched her, waiting to see what she would decide. You killed an innocent man, Kate said. I killed a lot of innocent men, Dalton replied. Your father was just one name on a very long list. That doesn't excuse it. Nothing excuses it, but it's the truth. Then why am I sitting here instead of putting a bullet in your head? Dalton smiled, but there was no humor in it. Because you want to know why. You want to understand what secret was worth killing a decorated Marine. And more than that, you want to know who gave the order. He was right. Kate forced her hand away from the pistol. Talk, she said. Dalton pulled out a tablet computer and set it on the table. The screen showed a photograph of a woman Kate recognized. Silver hair, sharp eyes. The kind of face that belonged in boardrooms and congressional hearings. Director Evelyn Cross, Dalton said. She runs the Special Activities Division within the CIA. Everything I've done for the past 20 years, I've done under her direction. Kate knew the name. Cross was a legend in intelligence circles. She had been with the agency since the Cold War, surviving administration after administration through a combination of ruthless competence and carefully cultivated connections. Cross gave you the order to kill my father? Not directly, she never does. Cross has a whole network of cutouts and intermediaries, but the order originated with her. I'm certain of it. Dalton scrolled through files on the tablet. Your father had discovered something about a program called Precision. It's a targeted elimination network that's been operating since the late 90s. Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, it's responsible for over 200 assassinations worldwide. 200, Kate repeated. The number seemed impossible. Politicians who got too close to certain secrets. Journalists who asked the wrong questions. Foreign assets who knew too much. Even a few American citizens who threatened to expose classified operations. Dalton's voice was flat, reciting facts like a coroner reading autopsy results. Cross built Precision from the ground up, made it her personal tool, and your father stumbled onto evidence of its existence while investigating corruption in Afghanistan. Kate thought about her father, about his devotion to duty, to honor, to doing things the right way. If he had discovered a rogue assassination program, he would have reported it, would have pushed for accountability, and that would have signed his death warrant. What evidence did he have? Kate asked. Financial records mostly, money being funneled through shell companies to pay for operations that had no official authorization. Your father was good with numbers. He could follow the money trail better than most forensic accountants. He had built a case that could have brought down Cross and everyone connected to Precision. So she had him killed before he could go public. She had him eliminated in a way that would never lead back to her. Made it look like combat casualties in Afghanistan, closed the investigation before it could gain traction. Dalton met Kate's eyes, and she used me to do it, just like she used you in Syria. The mention of Syria made Kate sit up straighter. What do you mean? Operation Longshot wasn't about killing Nikolai Volkov. It was about testing you. Cross has been watching you for years, Kate, ever since you started making a name for yourself as a long-range shooter. She wanted to know if you were as good as your father, if you could be useful to Precision. Kate felt sick. The whole mission was a test? The target was real. Volkov did need to die, but Cross had multiple teams in position. My team, your team, even a third team you didn't know about. She was evaluating which team performed best under pressure, which assets were worth recruiting, and which were expendable. Tom Hartley was expendable. So were you, technically. But you impressed Cross with that 3,000-meter shot, showed discipline under fire, proved you could operate in denied areas. That's why you're still alive. Cross thinks you might be useful. Kate stood up abruptly. The elderly couple looked over, concerned by the sudden movement. She forced herself to sit back down, to control the anger that threatened to boil over. I'm not joining your death squad, she said. I know. That's why I'm here. Dalton leaned forward, lowering his voice. I'm done, Kate. 15 years of killing people for Cross. 15 years of telling myself it was for the greater good. I can't do it anymore. I won't do it anymore. So what? You want redemption? You want me to absolve you? I want to burn it all down. Cross, precision, the whole rotten system. And I need your help to do it. Kate stared at him. You killed my father. You expect me to trust you? No, I expect you to use me. I have files, Kate. Documentation of every kill Precision has ordered for the past decade. Financial records. Communication intercepts. Enough evidence to put Cross and a dozen other senior CIA officials in prison for the rest of their lives. Then why haven't you released it? Because Cross has insurance. She's been operating this long by making sure everyone involved has dirt on everyone else. If I try to expose Precision, she releases files proving I committed unsanctioned assassinations on foreign soil. I go to prison for murder. Or more likely, I have an accident before I can testify. Dalton pushed the tablet toward Kate. But you're clean. You were a dupe in Syria, used without your knowledge. If you come forward with this evidence, Cross can't touch you without exposing herself. Kate looked at the tablet but did not pick it up. What's stopping Cross from just killing me? Nothing if she thinks you're a threat. But right now, you're not. You signed those statements Price gave you. You played along with the official story. As far as Cross knows, you're another asset she successfully manipulated. She doesn't see you coming. Until I do come. Then what? Then she sends people like me to eliminate you. Except I won't be one of them. I'll be standing next to you when the shooting starts. The waitress returned with Kate's coffee and a knowing look that suggested she had seen plenty of intense conversations in this diner. Kate waited until she left before responding. Why should I believe anything you're saying? You could be working for Cross right now. This could be another test. It could be, Dalton admitted, but it's not. I'm tired, Kate. Tired of killing. Tired of lying, tired of serving a woman who treats human lives like chess pieces. He pulled up his sleeve, showing a long scar that ran from wrist to elbow. I tried to quit last year, told Cross I was done. She sent 2 of her people to remind me that no one leaves Precision alive. I killed them both, but barely. That's when I knew I had only 2 choices. Spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, or find a way to end this. Kate picked up the tablet and began scrolling through the files. There were hundreds of them. Kill orders, after action reports, financial transactions, all meticulously documented. And there, buried in the files from 2011, was her father's name. Sergeant Major James Brennan. Target eliminated. Mission success. I need time to think, Kate said. You have 48 hours. After that, Cross is going to start wondering why I haven't checked in. When that happens, she'll send people to find me, and they'll find you too. Kate stood, taking the tablet with her. If I decide to do this, what's the plan? We need to get the files to someone who can actually do something with them. Someone with the political capital to force an investigation that Cross can't bury. I know a senator, Patricia Morgan. She chairs the Intelligence Committee, and she's been trying to investigate CIA overreach for years. With this evidence, she could bring Cross down. And if Cross finds out we're going to Morgan, then we'll be dead long before we get to Washington. Dalton stood as well, which is why we need to move fast and stay smart. No electronic communication, no credit cards, no patterns she can predict. Kate nodded slowly. I'll be in touch. She walked out of this diner without looking back. Behind her, Jake Dalton sat back down and ordered that apple pie. He ate it slowly, savoring each bite, knowing it might be the last normal meal he ever had. Kate drove for 3 hours before stopping at a rest area. She parked in a corner spot away from other vehicles and pulled out the tablet Dalton had given her. The files were worse than she had imagined, not just assassinations, but false flag operations, manufactured evidence used to justify wars, innocent people framed as terrorists to justify their elimination. Her father's file was particularly detailed. It outlined exactly how Cross had orchestrated his death, the fake intelligence about an IED, the cover story, even the funeral arrangements, all planned before James Brennan had died. Kate read every word, forced herself to see the cold calculation behind her father's murder, and with each page her resolve hardened. Evelyn Cross had to pay, not just for her father, for all of them. Every name in these files, every life ended to protect secrets that should never have existed. But Kate was not naive. She understood that going after Cross meant going after the entire apparatus of American intelligence. It meant exposing secrets that powerful people wanted to stay buried. It meant painting a target on her back that would never go away. She thought about Ray, about Luis, about Kane. They deserved to know what she was planning, deserved a chance to walk away before things got ugly. Kate pulled out a burner phone and made 3 calls. She kept each one brief, just a location and a time. No explanations. If they trusted her, they would come. If they did not, she would understand. 24 hours later, all 3 of them were sitting in a motel room outside Richmond, Virginia. Kate had chosen the location carefully, close enough to Washington that they could move quickly if needed, far enough out that CIA surveillance would be thin. Ray arrived first, his old pickup truck looking out of place among the rental cars. Luis came next, limping slightly from the bullet wound that had never quite healed right. Kane was last, carrying a laptop bag that probably held enough encrypted communications gear to run a small war. Kate waited until they were all seated before speaking. She told them everything, about the diner, about Dalton, about Precision and Evelyn Cross and the files that proved everything. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Ray said, "You want to go after the CIA. I want to go after the people who killed my father and used all of us as pawns." "That's suicide," Luis said, but he was smiling when he said it. "I'm in." Kane opened his laptop. "I assume you have a plan that's slightly more sophisticated than walking into Langley and shooting everyone. We give the files to Senator Morgan. Let her use the political process to bring Cross down. We just need to survive long enough for that to happen." "And if Cross finds out before we can get to Morgan," Ray asked, "then we fight. But we fight smart. We use our own tactics against her, make her paranoid, make her spend resources trying to find us, force her to make mistakes." Kane was already typing, pulling up information on his screen. "Senator Morgan is scheduled to be in Washington for the next 3 weeks. Senate hearings on intelligence appropriations. She'll be in the Russell building most days." "Too public," Luis said. "Cross will have eyes on her. We'd never get close." "Then we don't go to her office. We go to her home, Virginia Estate, about 40 minutes outside D.C., heavily secured but by her own people, not the CIA." Kate nodded. "Can you get us past her security?" "Probably. But it would help if we had something to prove we're legit. Something that shows we're not just conspiracy theorists or foreign agents trying to compromise a senator." Kate thought about it. Then she picked up the tablet and navigated to a specific file, her father's file. She copied it to a secure drive and handed it to Kane. "Send this to Morgan's office. Anonymous email. Use routing that can't be traced back to us. Include a message. Tell her we have proof of illegal CIA operations and we need to meet in person." "She'll think it's a trap," Ray said. "Maybe, but she spent years trying to get evidence like this. If there's even a chance it's real, she'll at least look at it." Kane set up the anonymous email and sent it within minutes. Then they waited. Morgan was known for working late, for personally reviewing intelligence that came across her desk. If she was in her office when the email arrived, they might get a response quickly. 2 hours passed. Kate paced the motel room while the others tried to rest. They were all running on fumes now, sustained by adrenaline and the knowledge that stopping meant dying. Finally, Kane's laptop chimed. An email routed through multiple secure servers, with a sender address that changed every few seconds. Morgan's people knew what they were doing. The message was brief. "Tomorrow night, 9 p.m., the address you're thinking of. Come alone or don't come at all." Kate smiled. "She's hooked." "Or she's setting a trap," Luis pointed out. "This could be Cross using Morgan as bait. Only one way to find out." The next day passed in careful preparation. Kane mapped out routes to Morgan's estate, identifying 3 different approach paths and twice as many escape routes. Ray cleaned in weapons and checked ammunition. Luis prepared emergency medical supplies, knowing that any meeting with this kind of stakes could turn violent. Kate spent most of the day reading through the precision files, committing names and dates to memory. If something happened to the tablet, if the data was destroyed or compromised, she wanted to be able to testify from her own knowledge. One file in particular caught her attention. It detailed an operation from 3 years ago. Target, a journalist named Michael Reese who had been investigating CYA black sites. Method, car accident, made to look random. Authorization, Evelyn Cross. Kate knew that name. Michael Reese had been dating her college roommate. She had gone to his funeral, sat in the back of the church while his mother wept. She had believed it was a tragic accident. It was murder. Sanctioned murder by the same woman who had killed her father. The rage Kate felt was no longer hot and immediate. It had cooled into something harder, something patient, the kind of anger that could wait years for the right moment to strike. She would not rush this, would not make mistakes driven by emotion. She would be methodical, precise, the way her father had taught her. At 8 p.m., they loaded into 2 vehicles. Kane and Luis in one car, staying back as overwatch. Ray and Kate in another, approaching Morgan's estate directly. The senator's home was everything Kate expected. Colonial architecture, manicured grounds, security that was visible enough to deter casual threats, but subtle enough not to look paranoid. These were professionals, not government rent-a-cops. They stopped at the front gate. A guard approached, hand resting casually on his sidearm. Kate rolled down her window and said simply, "We have an appointment." The guard spoke into his radio, waited, then nodded and stepped back. The gate opened. They drove up a long driveway lined with oak trees. The main house was lit up like a mansion in a movie, all white columns and warm light spilling from windows. Kate half expected to see servants in period costume. Instead, they were met by a woman in her late 30s wearing tactical pants in a blazer that did not quite hide her shoulder holster. Secret Service, Kate guessed. Or maybe FBI. Someone who took Morgan's protection seriously. "Ms. Brennan, Mr. Cooper, the senator is expecting you. I'll need you to leave any weapons in your vehicle." Kate and Ray exchanged glances. Then they both drew their pistols and handed them over. The woman secured the weapons in a lockbox and gestured toward the house. "Follow me, please." They were led through a foyer that belonged in a museum, past artwork that was probably worth more than Kate's ranch, and into a study that smelled of old books and older money. Senator Patricia Morgan stood by the fireplace, a glass of whiskey in her hand, looking exactly like her official photographs. 67 years old, steel gray hair, eyes that had seen every kind of political maneuvering and knew how to spot a lie from across the room. "Ms. Brennan," Morgan said, "I'll admit your email intrigued me. File on your father was quite detailed, too detailed to be fabricated." "It's all real," Kate said, "every word." "So you say? And you claim to have more? Evidence of a rogue CIA, a program conducting unauthorized assassinations?" "Not just claim, I can prove it." Morgan took a sip of her whiskey. "You understand the implications of what you're suggesting. If you're wrong or if you're trying to plant false evidence, you'll be charged with a dozen felonies, and I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in a cell." "I understand." "And if you're right, if this evidence is genuine, you're going to make enemies of some of the most powerful people in Washington. They'll come after you with everything they have. Your life will never be the same." "It's already not the same," Kate said quietly. "They killed my father, used me as a pawn. I'm not walking away from this." Morgan studied her for a long moment. Then she set down her glass. "Show me what you have." Kate pulled out the tablet and handed it over. Morgan sat down at her desk and began reading. Her expression did not change as she scrolled through file after file. But Kate saw her grip on the tablet tighten, saw the color drain from her face as the scope of Precision's operations became clear. After 30 minutes, Morgan looked up. "Do you know what you've brought me? A case for criminal prosecution. More than that, you've brought me the smoking gun I've been looking for since I joined the Intelligence Committee. Evidence of systematic abuse of power at the highest levels of the CIA." Morgan stood and walked to the window, looking out at her darkened grounds. "Evelyn Cross has been untouchable for 20 years. Every time someone tried to investigate her programs, evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted. Cases fell apart. She's protected by people who need her to be protected. But now you have proof. Now I have proof, and it's going to start a war." Morgan turned back to face them. "The moment I introduce this evidence, Cross will know. She'll come after you with everything she has. Are you prepared for that?" "We are," Ray said. It was the first time he had spoken since entering the house. We didn't come this far to back down now. Morgan nodded slowly. Then here's what's going to happen. I've been quietly building support for an investigation into CIA overreach for the past 6 months. Several committee members are already on board, waiting for actionable evidence. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling an emergency closed session of the Intelligence Committee. I'll present this evidence under congressional privilege, which means Cross can't legally suppress it. The committee will vote on whether to launch a formal investigation. Will they vote yes? Kate asked. Some will. Others are in Cross's pocket, directly or indirectly. It'll be close. Morgan's expression hardened. But even if the vote fails, the evidence will be in the congressional record. It can't be erased, can't be buried. That's your insurance policy. What about our physical safety? Ray asked the practical question. I can arrange protective custody through the FBI. Put you in safe houses until the investigation is complete. Kate shook her head. No government facilities. Cross has people everywhere. We take care of ourselves. That's foolish. It's survival. We trust each other. We don't trust anyone else. Morgan looked like she wanted to argue, but she recognized the determination in Kate's eyes. Fine, but take this. She handed Kate a card with a phone number. Direct line to my private security team. If Cross comes after you and you need help, call that number. They'll respond faster than any government agency. Kate pocketed the card. When do we know if the committee approves the investigation? Tomorrow afternoon, I'll text you the results. Until then, stay out of sight. Don't use credit cards. Don't go anywhere predictable. Cross is dangerous when she's cornered, and you've just backed her into the tightest corner of her career. They left the way they came, collecting their weapons and driving back down that long driveway. Kane and Luis were waiting at the rendezvous point, engines running, ready to move at the first sign of trouble. How did it go? Kane asked as they climbed into the vehicles. Morgan's bringing it to the committee tomorrow. We're about to make a lot of powerful people very unhappy. They drove through the night, heading west into the Blue Ridge Mountains. Kane had identified a cabin that was off the grid, owned by a veteran who asked no questions and owed Ray a favor from their time in Iraq. It was the kind of place where they could see anyone coming from a mile away. The cabin was exactly as advertised. No electricity, no running water, just 4 walls and a roof and a clear view of the access road. They took shifts on watch, 2 hours each, while the others tried to rest. Kate had the 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift. She sat on the porch with her father's rifle across her lap, watching the darkness for any sign of movement. The mountains were quiet this time of night. Just the wind in the trees and the occasional sound of an animal moving through the underbrush. She thought about her father, about all the years he had spent building that rifle, calculating those shots, preparing for a mission he never got to complete. He had died thinking he failed. Died without knowing that his daughter would one day pick up that rifle and finish his work. Not the work of killing Volkov. That had been a sideshow, a distraction. The real work was this, exposing the corruption that had killed him, making sure the people who ordered his death faced justice. Kate wondered what her father would think of her now, sitting in a dark cabin, waiting to see if the CIA would try to kill her. Part of her thought he would be proud, but another part wondered if he would tell her to walk away, to live a quiet life on that Montana ranch and let the dead bury the dead. But she could not walk away. Not now. She was her father's daughter, and Marines did not abandon the mission. At dawn, Kane's encrypted phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, just 2 words. They know. Kate felt ice run through her veins. How long do we have? Minutes, maybe. Cross doesn't waste time. They were packed and moving within 60 seconds. Left the cabin exactly as they found it and drove hard for the nearest town. Behind them, Kate could swear she heard the sound of helicopters in the distance. The hunt had begun. They ditched the vehicles in a shopping mall parking lot and split up. Kane and Luis took one direction, Ray and Kate another. The plan was simple. Make Cross divide her resources. Force her to choose which team to pursue. Buy time for Senator Morgan to convene that committee meeting. Kate and Ray moved through the morning crowds like ghosts, 2 more faces among thousands. They bought prepaid phones from a convenience store, paid cash for bus tickets heading north, then immediately doubled back and caught a train going south. Standard evasion tactics, the kind of thing that worked against normal pursuers. But Evelyn Cross was not normal. The first sign came at the train station in Richmond. Kate spotted him immediately. A man in his 30s wearing a business suit that was just slightly too tight across the shoulders. He was scanning faces with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. When his eyes passed over Kate, they paused for just a fraction of a second too long. "We're made," Kate said quietly to Ray. "East exit, 2 minutes." They moved casually, not running, not drawing attention. Just two travelers heading for the bathroom or the food court. The man in the suit spoke into his collar mic, no doubt calling for backup. Kate and Ray made it outside and into a taxi before the net could close. The driver was an elderly man who seemed happy for the fare and asked no questions when Kate handed him $300 cash and told him to drive. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Just drive, we'll tell you when to stop." They headed west, out of the city, into the suburbs that all looked the same. Kate watched the rear window. No obvious tail, but that meant nothing. Cross had resources Kate could only imagine. Satellite surveillance, facial recognition, networks of informants throughout law enforcement. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kane. "Package delivered, going dark." That was the signal. Kane and Luis had successfully dropped off backup copies of the precision files with 3 different journalists. Insurance policies. If Cross killed Kate and her team, the evidence would still come out. It would not be as effective as a congressional investigation, but it would be something. Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. Kate almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. Then she saw the message. "Meet me where your father taught you to shoot, 1 hour. Come alone or Ray dies. Cross." Kate stared at the words, her blood running cold. Cross knew about the ranch in Montana, knew about her father's training ground, which meant she knew far more about Kate than any of them had suspected. "It's a trap," Ray said, reading over her shoulder. "Obviously, so we don't go." Kate thought about it. Thought about Cross sitting in some operations center, watching screens, moving pieces on a board. The woman had spent 20 years staying ahead of everyone who tried to stop her. She did not make mistakes, did not take unnecessary risks, which meant this meeting was important to her. Important enough to expose herself. "We go," Kate said, but not the way she expects. The ranch was a 12-hour drive from Richmond. Kate and Ray made it in 10, stopping only for Bonin and to switch vehicles twice. They arrived at Van, parking 3 miles away and approaching on foot through terrain Kate had known since childhood. The ranch looked exactly as she had left it. The main house, the barn, the shooting range her father had built with his own hands. But something was wrong. The lights were on in the house and Kate never left lights on. Through her rifle scope, she could see figures moving inside. At least 4, maybe more. Professional security, positioned at windows and doorways. Cross had brought a team. Ray set up next to her with the spotting scope. "I count 6 hostiles, all armed, all wearing tactical gear. This isn't a meeting, it's an execution." "Where's Cross?" "Don't see her yet." Ray scanned the property. "Wait, there, 2nd floor window." Kate shifted her aim. Through the scope, she saw a woman standing at the window of what had been her bedroom. Silver hair, expensive suit, looking out at the Montana landscape like she owned it. Evelyn Cross, the woman who had ordered her father's death, standing in her father's house, in her house. The rage that filled Kate was white-hot and utterly controlled. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, had imagined it 1,000 times. Now that it was here, she felt nothing but cold calculation. "Range?" Kate asked. 820 meters. Wind is calm, temperature dropping, easy shot. It would be easy. Sender mass on a stationary target at less than 1,000 meters. Kate could make that shot in her sleep. One pull of the trigger and Evelyn Cross would be dead. Justice for her father. Revenge for all the others. But something stopped her. Some instinct that had kept her alive this long. "Why is she standing in the open?" Kate asked. "Cross is too smart for that. She knows I'm out here somewhere, knows I'm a sniper, so why make herself a target?" Ray thought about it. "She wants you to take the shot." "Why?" "Because the moment you pull that trigger, her people have your position. They come at you from multiple angles while you're repositioning. Even if you kill Cross, you don't make it out alive." Kate lowered her rifle slightly. Ray was right. This was a trap within a trap. Cross was bait, sacrificing herself to eliminate a threat. Except Cross did not seem like the type to sacrifice herself for anything. "It's not her," Kate said suddenly. "What?" "Look at the way she's standing, the posture. It's wrong. Cross's military intelligence. She'd never stand in a window like that, never silhouette herself." Ray adjusted his scope, looking closer. "Body double? Has to be. Cross is somewhere else, watching waiting for me to shoot so her team can triangulate my position. They pulled back from their position and circled wide, approaching the ranch from a different angle. This time, Kate focused not on the house, but on the vehicles parked nearby. 3 black SUVs, government plates. And there, in the back seat of the middle vehicle, she saw the real Evelyn Cross. The CIA director sat in the vehicle like a queen in her throne room, illuminated by the glow of laptop screens and communication equipment. She was watching feeds from her security team, tracking their positions, coordinating the trap she had set. "There's your shot," Ray said. 600 meters through vehicle glass. "Ballistic glass," Kate corrected. "It'll deflect the round, and the angle is bad. Too steep. I'd have to hit the window at almost 45 degrees. So we get closer, or we do something she doesn't expect." Kate pulled out her phone and dialed the number Senator Morgan had given her. The senator answered on the second ring. "Ms. Brennan, tell me you're not about to do something stupid." "Define stupid." "Engaging Evelyn Cross without backup, without a warrant, without any legal authority whatsoever." "Then you'll be relieved to know I'm not engaging her. I'm negotiating with her." There was a pause. "Explain." "Cross is at my ranch right now. She came here to kill me, but she made a mistake. She assumed I'd react emotionally. Take a shot I shouldn't take. Instead, I'm going to offer her a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind where everyone walks away alive and she faces justice in a courtroom instead of dying in Montana." Morgan's laugh was bitter. "Cross will never surrender. She'd rather die than face prosecution." "Maybe, but I'm going to give her the choice." Kate ended the call and dialed another number, one she had memorized from the precision files. Evelyn Cross's personal cell phone. It rang 3 times before Cross answered. Her voice was exactly as Kate had imagined. Cold, controlled, absolutely certain of her own superiority. "Ms. Brennan, I was wondering when you'd figure out the window was a decoy." "I figured it out the moment I saw it. You're too smart to stand in the open like that. And yet you still came to the ranch, which makes you either very brave or very stupid." "I came because we need to talk." Cross laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Talk? You have nothing I want except your silence, and the only way to guarantee that is to ensure you can't talk at all. I have the precision files, all of them, and I've already given them to Senator Morgan. By now, the Intelligence Committee has seen them. They know everything." "Do they?" Cross did not sound concerned. "And do you really think a collection of politicians is going to move against me? I've been manipulating senators and congressmen since before you were born, Ms. Brennan. Patricia Morgan is no different. She's different enough, and she has evidence now. Evidence even you can't make disappear. Evidence can be discredited. Witnesses can be impeached. I've survived worse scandals than this." Kate took a breath. "Maybe, but you've never had Jake Dalton testify against you." The silence on the other end was profound. Kate had found the pressure point. "Dalton is dead," Cross said finally. "He was killed 3 hours ago in a traffic accident outside Baltimore." Kate's heart sank. She had hoped Dalton would make it to protective custody, had counted on his testimony to corroborate the files. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Turn on the news. It's already being reported. Tragic accident. Former CIA analyst dies when his car is struck by a drunk driver. The drunk driver, of course, will also die. Heart attack in his cell before he can be questioned." Very sad. Kate closed her eyes. Another death on Cross's hands. Another witness eliminated. "That won't stop the investigation." "There won't be an investigation. Senator Morgan received word an hour ago that her granddaughter was in a serious accident. The girl is in intensive care. Morgan has withdrawn from all committee work to be with her family. Very understandable. Very tragic." The pieces fell into place. Cross had moved against Morgan's family, had forced the senator to back off through the cruelest kind of leverage. "You hurt a child to protect yourself. I did what was necessary, as I always have, as I always will." Cross's voice hardened. "You cannot beat me, Miss Brennan. No one can. I have resources you cannot imagine. People in positions you cannot touch. I am not some warlord in Syria you can eliminate with a long-range shot. I am the system itself. Systems can be broken. Not this one, not by you." Cross paused. "I'm actually impressed by your skills. That shot in Syria was remarkable. A shame you'll never get to make another one. My people are closing on your position as we speak. You have perhaps 90 seconds before they arrive. I'd suggest you run, but there's nowhere to go. I own every law enforcement agency in 3 states, every airport, every border crossing. You're a fugitive now, a domestic terrorist who threatened a senator and broke into government systems. When you're killed resisting arrest, no one will question it. Kate looked at Ray. He had heard every word through the phone's speaker. His expression was grim, but not defeated. 60 seconds, Cross continued. 59, 58. Kate ended the call and turned to Ray. How many rounds do we have? Ray checked their ammunition. For the rifle, 12. For pistols, maybe 40 total. Against how many of her people? At least 20, based on the vehicle count. Probably more. So we're outgunned, outmanned, and surrounded. That about sums it up. Ray smiled grimly. Your daddy would say these are about the right odds for a Marine. Kate chambered a round in her rifle. Then let's make him proud. They repositioned to higher ground, a rocky outcrop that gave them clear sight lines to the ranch and the approaching roads. The position offered natural cover from 3 sides and multiple fallback routes. Kate had played in these rocks as a child, knew every crevice and ledge. Through her scope, Kate could see Cross's security teams beginning their sweep. They moved in professional formations, using cover effectively, communicating through hand signals. These were not cops or local police. These were Tier 1 operators, probably former special forces who had been recruited into Cross's private network. Men who killed for money and asked no questions. First team is at 400 meters, Ray reported. 6-man element, standard tactical formation. Kate sighted on the lead man. She had the high ground advantage, shooting downward at targets moving through broken terrain. They would have to expose themselves to advance, controlled her breathing, squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared. 400 meters away, the lead operator went down. The other 5 immediately scattered, seeking cover, trying to locate the source of the shot. Kate worked the bolt and fired again. Another hit. The team was down to 4, and they had not even located her position yet. The high ground and natural rock cover were force multipliers. Second team moving from the east, Ray said. 500 meters. They know your general area now, but not exact position. Kate shifted her aim. The eastern team was more cautious, using the terrain better, advancing by bounds with covering fire. She waited for one of them to make a mistake. When he did, exposing himself for just a moment to signal his team, Kate punished the error. That's 3, Ray said. 9 rounds left. At least 17 targets remaining. The teams adapted quickly. They stopped advancing in the open, started using smoke grenades to obscure Kate's sightlines, began suppressive fire toward her general position, forcing her to keep her head down. We need to move, Ray said. They're going to flank us. They pulled back to a secondary position Kate had prepared earlier, a narrow defile between 2 rock formations that funneled any approach into a kill zone. It was farther from the ranch, almost 1,000 meters, but it offered multiple escape routes and better defensive positions. Through her scope, Kate saw Cross exit her vehicle. The CIA director stood in the open now, apparently unconcerned about being shot. She raised a megaphone to her mouth. Ms. Brennan, this is your last chance. Surrender now and I'll ensure you receive a fair trial. Continue this and you'll die on your father's land. Is that really how you want this to end? Kate could have taken the shot, could have put a bullet through Cross from this distance. But Ray was right about the ballistic glass, and Cross knew it. She was taunting Kate, daring her to waste ammunition. Instead, Kate aimed at the communications ray on top of one of the SUVs, fired. The equipment exploded in a shower of sparks. That's for Jake Dalton, Kate said quietly. She fired again, hitting the second vehicle's radio system. That's for my father. A third shot destroyed the last communications setup. And that's for everyone else you've killed. Cross dove back into her vehicle. The security teams, now cut off from their command and control, became visibly more hesitant. Without Cross's coordination, they were just individual operators, dangerous but no longer working as a unified force. 6 rounds left, Ray said, and they're still coming. Kate saw movement in her peripheral vision. A team had successfully flanked them, was approaching from the north through a route she had not anticipated. She spun, acquired the target, fired, missed. The rounds sparked off rocks 3 feet from the operator's head. 5 rounds. She fired again. This time the shot found its mark. 4 rounds. Kate, Ray's voice was urgent. We need to go, now. There are too many of them. He was right. They could not win this fight, could not hold this position against 20 trained killers backed by unlimited resources. But running meant leaving her father's ranch, leaving the place where he had taught her everything she knew, a place she would never see again. Go, Kate said. I'll cover you. Like hell. We leave together or not at all. Ray, listen to me. Someone needs to survive this. Someone needs to tell the truth about what happened here. That's you. Katie, no. That's an order, Sergeant Major. Ray stared at her. Then his eyes filled with tears. He knew she was right, knew that one of them had to make it out, had to ensure that Cross did not bury this story the way she had buried so many others. Your daddy would be so goddamn proud of you, Ray said. He gripped her shoulder once, hard. Then he was gone, moving through the darkness with the skill of a man who had spent 40 years learning how to stay alive in impossible situations. Kate watched him disappear. Then she turned back to her rifle. 4 rounds left, at least 15 targets. Darkness falling. Cross's people closing in from 3 sides. She thought about her father, about Tom, about all the people Cross had killed to protect her secrets. They deserved better than this, deserved justice, not just revenge. But sometimes revenge was all you could get. Kate began firing, methodical, precise. Each shot carefully aimed, each one finding its mark. 3 rounds, 2 rounds, 1 round. The last bullet went into the engine block of Cross's SUV. The vehicle died with a mechanical groan. Cross would have to walk out of here like everyone else. Then Kate's rifle was empty. She slung it across her back and drew her pistol. Started moving through the terrain she knew better than anyone. The rocks where she had played as a child. The creek where her father had taught her to fish. The trails she had hiked 1,000 times. The security teams followed, but they were slow, cautious. They had lost 6 people to Kate's rifle, and they were not eager to be number 7. That caution bought her time. She made it almost 2 miles before they cornered her in a box canyon. 3 men, all armed with automatic weapons, blocking the only exit. Kate raised her pistol, 13 rounds against 3 rifles. Not good odds, but she had been facing bad odds all night. Don't, one of the men said. He was older than the others, maybe 50. It's over. Put down the weapon. Can't do that. You kill us, more will come. You can't fight all of Cross's people. Can't fight the whole CIA. Maybe not, but I can make sure everyone knows I tried. The man sighed. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I heard about your father. Read his service record. He was a good Marine. He was the best. Then honor him by staying alive. Surrender. Take your chances in court. It's better than dying in this canyon. Kate thought about it, thought about courtrooms and trials and the slim chance that the truth might come out. Then she thought about Evelyn Cross, who had manipulated the system for 20 years, who had killed a senator's granddaughter just to send a message. There would be no fair trial, no justice, just a bullet in a cell somewhere, officially ruled a suicide. Tell Cross she didn't win, Kate said. Tell her the files are out there. Tell her the truth always comes out eventually. Kate, don't. She raised her pistol. The sound of gunfire echoed through the canyon, but it did not come from the security team. It came from behind them. All 3 men went down in a hail of bullets. Kate dove for cover, not understanding what was happening. Then she saw him, Jake Dalton, alive, carrying an assault rifle, moving like a man who had done this many times before. You're supposed to be dead, Kate said. I got better. Dalton helped her up. Car accident was staged. Cross thinks I'm dead, which gives us an advantage. Come on, we don't have much time. They ran together through the darkness. Behind them, Kate could hear more security teams converging. Cross would have heard the gunfire, would know something had gone wrong. Where are we going? Kate asked. Anywhere but here. I've got a truck hidden a mile north. We make it there, we might live through the night. They ran, through brush that tore at their clothes, over rocks that threatened to break ankles. Kate's lungs burned and her legs screamed, but she kept moving. The truck was where Dalton said it would be, a beat-up Ford that looked like it belonged to a rancher. They climbed in and Dalton started the engine, driving without lights, using night vision goggles to navigate. 5 miles from the ranch, Kate finally allowed herself to breathe. Why did you come back? She asked. Because Cross tried to kill me and I decided I wasn't ready to die. Dalton kept his eyes on the road. And because you were right about everything. We can't beat Cross by running. We can't beat her by hiding. We have to burn it all down. Morgan pulled out. Her granddaughter was hurt. Not hurt, threatened. Cross sent people to the girls' school, made it clear what would happen if Morgan didn't back off. But Morgan's tougher than Cross thought. She didn't pull out. She's playing along until she can strike back. Kate felt a flicker of hope. How do you know? Because Morgan's the one who told me you were at the ranch. Told me to get you out before Cross killed you. She's still in this fight, we all are. They drove through the night, heading east toward Washington. Behind them, Kate's childhood home burned. Cross had ordered it destroyed, erasing the last physical connection to Kate's father. But the memories could not be burned, the lessons could not be erased, and the mission, her father's mission, was not over. As the sun rose over the Virginia countryside, Dalton pulled into a rest stop. He handed Kate a phone. "Call Morgan. Tell her we're ready to testify. Tell her to convene that committee meeting. It's time to end this." Kate took the phone and dialed. When Morgan answered, Kate spoke 3 words. "Let's finish it." The congressional hearing room was everything Kate had imagined and nothing like she expected. Television cameras lined the walls. Reporters packed the gallery. Security personnel stood at every door, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. The room hummed with the electric tension that came before something significant happened. Senator Patricia Morgan sat at the center of the committee table, looking every bit the warrior she was. Her granddaughter was safe now, tucked away in protective custody with round-the-clock security. Morgan had spent the past 3 days quietly marshaling support, calling in favors accumulated over 30 years in Washington, building an ironclad coalition. What Cross had seen as surrender had been strategic retreat and preparation. Kate sat in the witness chair, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. Behind her in the gallery, Ray Cooper sat in his best suit, the one he had worn to James Brennan's funeral 14 years ago. Next to him was Luis Gomez, his arm in a sling from a wound received during their escape from Montana. David Kane sat on Luis's other side, his laptop bag on his knees, ready to provide technical evidence if needed. Jake Dalton sat separately, flanked by FBI agents. His resurrection had caused a sensation when news leaked that the supposedly dead CIA analyst was about to testify. Cross had tried to block his appearance, claiming national security concerns, but Morgan had outmaneuvered her, using emergency procedures that Cross could not stop without revealing too much. The hearing had been scheduled for 9 in the morning. It was now 9:15, and Cross had not yet arrived. Morgan's expression remained neutral, but Kate could see the tension in her shoulders. Every minute of delay was another minute Cross could use to bury evidence, intimidate witnesses, or arrange some catastrophe that would derail everything. At 9:20, the doors opened. Evelyn Cross entered like a queen walking into her throne room. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Kate's truck. Her silver hair was perfect. Her expression was one of patient tolerance, as if she were doing everyone a favor by showing up at all. Behind her came a phalanx of lawyers, each carrying briefcases that likely held enough legal firepower to shut down the hearing before it truly began. Cross took her seat at the witness table without looking at Kate, did not acknowledge Dalton's presence, simply arranged her papers and waited for Morgan to begin. Morgan consulted her notes, letting the silence build. The television cameras captured every moment. This hearing was closed to the public, but it was being recorded for a congressional record. Everything said here would eventually become part of history. Then Morgan looked up and spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the room. "This emergency session of the Senate Intelligence Committee has been convened to investigate allegations of unauthorized CIA operations. Director Cross, you've been made aware of these allegations?" "I have, Senator." Cross's voice was smooth, unbothered, "and I'm prepared to address them fully." "Good, because we have evidence suggesting that for the past 20 years, you've been running an extrajudicial assassination program called Precision, that you've ordered the deaths of American citizens without trial, without oversight, and without authorization from any elected official." Cross smiled. It was a small smile, almost sympathetic. "Senator Morgan, with respect, I think you've been misled by unreliable sources. The CIA conducts many classified operations in support of national security. Some of those operations are necessarily compartmentalized, but I can assure you that everything done under my authority has been properly vetted and authorized." "Authorized by whom?" "By the appropriate officials within the executive branch, working under legal frameworks established by Congress itself." "Names, Director Cross. Give us names." Cross's smile never wavered. "I'm afraid that information is classified, Senator. I'd be happy to discuss it in a closed session with appropriate security clearances." Morgan leaned forward. "We're in a closed session, Director. This hearing is classified. Everyone in this room has been cleared. So I'll ask again. Who authorized the assassination of Sergeant Major James Brennan in Afghanistan in 2011? The room went completely silent. Every eye turned to Cross. The director's smile finally faltered, just for a moment. "I'm not familiar with that specific operation, Senator." "Really? Because we have documents suggesting you personally authorized it. Documents with your signature. Morgan nodded to an aide who distributed folders to the committee members. Kate watched Cross's face as the director opened her folder and saw the evidence inside. For just a moment, something flickered in Cross's eyes. Not fear, not quite, but recognition that she was in real danger. These documents are forgeries, Cross said calmly, clearly fabricated by someone with an agenda. Are they? Because we have a witness who says otherwise. Morgan gestured to Dalton. Agent Dalton, you were present when Director Cross authorized the elimination of Sergeant Major Brennan. Were you not? Dalton stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. Yes, Senator, I was in Director Cross's office on September 20th, 2011. She provided me with a file on James Brennan and ordered me to eliminate him within 48 hours. She stated that Brennan had discovered classified information about CYA operations in Afghanistan and was planning to leak it to the press. And you carried out this order? I did. On September 23rd, I shot and killed Sergeant Major James Brennan at a range of 2,800 meters. The death was reported as combat casualties from an IED attack. I filed a false after-action report supporting that cover story. Cross's lawyers erupted. They were talking over each other, demanding to know Dalton's immunity agreement, claiming he was a disgruntled employee with a vendetta, insisting his testimony was tainted. Morgan let them talk themselves out. Then she spoke quietly, and somehow her voice cut through all the noise. Director Cross, do you deny Agent Dalton's testimony? I absolutely deny it. Agent Dalton is lying to save himself from prosecution for unauthorized operations he conducted on his own initiative. I see. And I suppose he's also lying about the other 47 assassinations detailed in the files we've received? Cross's expression finally cracked. Real anger showed through now. Whatever files you think you have, Senator, they're fabrications. Disinformation planted by foreign intelligence services trying to discredit American intelligence operations. Disinformation? These files include financial records, communication intercepts, and after-action reports that match classified CIA documentation. We've had forensic accountants trace the money. We've had technical experts verify the communication metadata. Everything checks out. Then someone inside the agency is trying to frame me, Cross said. There are people who resent my success, who want to see me brought down. They've manufactured evidence to support their agenda. Morgan picked up another document. What about Michael Reese, the journalist who died in a car accident 3 years ago? We have evidence suggesting you ordered his death. Nonsense. We have the work order, the payment vouchers, the operator's report, all connecting back to precision. Cross stood abruptly. Senator, I have served my country for 40 years. I have stopped terrorist attacks. I have eliminated threats that would have killed thousands of Americans. And now you're going to destroy my career based on forged documents and the testimony of a traitor? I'm going to follow the evidence wherever it leads, Morgan said. If that evidence exonerates you, wonderful. But if it proves you've been running an illegal assassination program, then you'll face the consequences. There will be no consequences, Cross's voice was ice, because you don't have the votes to move forward with any investigation. Half this committee owes their careers to people I've protected. They know what happens when they cross me. Morgan smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Actually, Director Cross, I have exactly the votes I need. Would you like to know why? She gestured to the wine room. Kate turned and saw 3 people enter the room. 2 senators and 1 congressman, all members of the Intelligence Committee. All 3 had been considered Cross's allies. They took their seats at the committee table without looking at Cross. Morgan continued, these members received evidence last night, evidence of precision operations that directly affected their constituents. Senator Bradley learned that his nephew, a soldier in Afghanistan, was killed by precision operatives to cover up evidence of CYA corruption. Congressman Huang discovered that a journalist in his district was murdered to prevent publication of a story about illegal weapons sales. Senator Nichols found out that one of his former aides died in a suspicious accident after asking questions about CIA budgets. Cross's face had gone pale. You can't prove any of that. We can, and we will. The vote on whether to launch a formal investigation will be held in 30 minutes. I expect it will pass unanimously. For the first time, Kate saw Evelyn Cross truly afraid. The director's hands shook slightly as she gathered her papers. Her perfect composure cracked, revealing the desperate woman underneath. This is a witch hunt, Cross said. A political assassination designed to destroy me and undermine American intelligence capabilities. No, Director, this is accountability, something you've avoided for far too long. Cross looked around the room, searching for allies, for support, for anyone who might save her. She found none. Even her own lawyers were distancing themselves, whispering among themselves about how quickly they could withdraw from representation. Then Cross's eyes landed on Kate. For a long moment, the two women stared at each other across the hearing room. Kate saw a recognition there, understanding. Cross knew exactly who Kate was, knew she was James Brennan's daughter, knew this was personal. You think you've won, Cross said quietly. You think this is over, but it's not. Even if I go down, the system remains. There will always be someone doing what I did, someone making the hard choices that keep America safe. And eventually, people like you will realize that idealism is a luxury we can't afford. Kate stood. She had not planned to speak, had thought she would just observe, let Dalton's testimony and the documents speak for themselves. But Cross's words ignited something in her. My father believed in idealism, Kate said, her voice carried clearly in the silent room. He believed that America was worth defending because we stood for something, because we had principles that separated us from our enemies. You took that from him. You killed him because he believed in accountability, in the rule of law, in doing things the right way, even when the wrong way was easier. Cross started to respond, but Kate kept talking. He taught me to shoot when I was 9 years old, taught me about discipline and precision and the responsibility that comes with the ability to take a life from a distance. He said that power like that should only be used to protect the innocent, to serve something bigger than yourself. Kate walked toward Cross's table. The security personnel tensed, but Morgan waved them off. You had that same power, Kate continued. You could have used it to actually protect America, to serve the values we claim to stand for. Instead, you used it to protect yourself, to eliminate anyone who threatened your position. You became exactly what my father spent his life fighting against. Your father was naive, Cross said. He didn't understand how the world really works. No, he understood perfectly. He just refused to compromise his principles, and that's why you killed him. Cross stood, facing Kate across 3 feet of space. I did what was necessary, just as you would have done in my position. I'll never be in your position, because I'll never trade my honor for power. Honor? Cross laughed. Honor is what men use to justify their failures. Your father's honor got him killed. Your honor will do the same to you. Maybe, but I'll die knowing I stood for something. What will you die knowing? Cross had no answer to that. She simply turned and walked out of the hearing room, her lawyers scrambling to follow. The doors closed behind her with a heavy thud. Morgan called a recess. The vote would come after lunch, but everyone in the room knew how it would go. Cross was finished. Kate walked into the hallway and found Ray waiting. He pulled her into a hug without saying anything. Sometimes there were no words. Louise and Kane joined them a moment later. They stood together, 4 people who had walked through fire and somehow survived. Your daddy would be proud, Ray said finally. Kate nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Jake Dalton approached slowly, giving them space. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. I meant what I said in there. Every word. Your father didn't deserve what happened to him. None of them did. Will you testify at Cross's trial? Kate asked. I'll testify at every trial, Cross, and everyone else involved in Precision. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. It won't bring them back. No, but it's all I can do. Kate extended her hand. Dalton looked at it for a moment, then shook it. The gesture was formal, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. They would never be friends, but they could be allies in seeking justice. The vote came at 2 in the afternoon, 14-0 in favor of a full investigation. Cross's attorney immediately filed motions to dismiss, claiming political bias and manufactured evidence. But the evidence was too strong, too well documented. Within a week, a federal grand jury would indict Evelyn Cross on 47 counts of murder, conspiracy, and abuse of power. The trial would take months. The revelations would rock Washington and send shockwaves through the intelligence community. 3 other senior CIA officials would be arrested. Dozens more would resign rather than face investigation. The entire apparatus of Precision would be dismantled. But that was all in the future. For now, Kate stood on the steps of the Capitol building, watching the sun set over Washington. Ray stood beside him, along with Louise and Kane. They had done what they came to do, had given James Brennan and Tom Hartley and all the others the justice they deserved. What happens now? Luis asked. We go home, Kate said. What's left of it? Her ranch in Montana was gone, burned to the foundation. But the land remained. The mountains her father had loved, the valleys where he had taught her to shoot. She would rebuild, start over, create something new from the ashes. 3 months later, Kate stood in front of a rebuilt shooting range on her father's land. The house was still under construction, but the range was complete, exactly as her father had designed it, with positions at 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters, and 2,000 meters. 12 veterans sat in a semicircle around her, all dealing with their own demons, all looking for something to quiet the noise in their heads. Kate knew she could not heal them, could not take away what they had seen and done, but she could give them what her father had given her: a focus, a discipline, a way to channel everything into something precise and controlled. Shooting at long range is about more than hitting a target, Kate told them. It's about controlling your breathing, your heartbeat, your mind. It's about learning to be still in a world that won't stop moving. Some of you will find that helpful, others won't, but everyone is welcome to try. An old Marine, maybe 70, raised his hand. Did you really make that shot in Syria? 3,000 meters? Kate smiled. I made a shot. Whether it was the shot that killed the target is less clear, but I learned something from it. I learned that the shot itself matters more than the result. The discipline, the preparation, the commitment to doing everything exactly right, even when no one is watching. She picked up her father's rifle, the M2010 he had built with his own hands. It had survived the fire, had been recovered from the ruins of the ranch. Scorched but functional, like her. My father spent years building this rifle, teaching me to use it, preparing me for a shot he would never take. At first, I thought it was all about revenge, about killing the man who killed him. But I was wrong. Kate sighted down the range, looking at the target 2,000 meters distant. It was about legacy, about passing on knowledge and skill from one generation to the next, about making sure that what he learned didn't die with him. She fired. The rifle roared. 2 seconds later, the distant target rang with impact. That's what we do here. We pass on what we've learned. We help each other become better. We honor those who came before by refusing to let their sacrifices be forgotten. The veterans began setting up their own weapons, their own positions. Kate moved among them, offering quiet advice, correcting form, sharing the lessons her father had taught her. As the sun set over the Montana mountains, she thought about her father, about Tom, about all the people Cross had killed in pursuit of power. They were gone, lost to a system that valued secrecy over justice. But they were not forgotten. Every shot Kate took, every student she trained, every time she looked through that scope and remembered her father's voice teaching her to breathe and squeeze and follow through, they lived on. Ray appeared beside her as the last of the students packed up for the day. You doing okay? I am. For the first time in a long time, I actually am. Good, because I got a call from Morgan. Cross's trial starts next month. They want us to testify. All of us, everyone, me, you, Luis, Kane, Dalton. They're building a case so strong that even Cross's lawyers can't fight it. Kate nodded. Then we'll be there. We'll tell the truth. All of it. It's going to get ugly. Cross still has friends in Washington, people who are going to fight this. Let them fight. We've got something they don't. What's that? The moral high ground and a really good rifle. Ray laughed. The first genuine laugh Kate had heard from him since Tom died. It was a good sound, a healing sound. That night, Kate sat on the porch of her temporary cabin, the one she was living in while the main house was rebuilt. She held her father's notebook, the one filled with calculations and wind charts and every lesson he had learned about long-range shooting. On the last page, underneath his final letter to her, she wrote her own message, not to him, but to whoever might inherit this notebook after she was gone. Everything in this book was taught to me by my father, Sergeant Major James Brennan, USMC. He was killed by people who feared the truth he represented, but his knowledge lives on. His lessons continue, and every shot taken with precision and honor is a tribute to his memory. Use this information well. Use it to protect the innocent. Use it to serve something bigger than yourself. That is the only way we honor those who came before. That is the only way we ensure their sacrifices meant something. She closed the notebook and looked up at the Montana sky, brilliant with stars. We did it, Dad, she whispered. We finished what you started. The wind carried her words away, up into the mountains, into the eternal darkness between the stars. And somewhere, she liked to think, her father heard them. 6 months later, Evelyn Cross was convicted on 32 counts of murder, conspiracy, and abuse of power. She received 7 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. The judge, reading the verdict, called her actions a betrayal of everything the intelligence community was supposed to stand for. Cross showed no emotion as the sentence was read, but as she was led from the courtroom in handcuffs, she looked at Kate one final time. What Kate saw in her eyes was not remorse or regret. It was the cold calculation of a woman who had spent her life moving pieces on a chessboard. Even in defeat, Cross was planning her next move. But it did not matter anymore. Cross would spend the rest of her life in a federal prison. The precision program was dismantled. The files were public record. And while Kate knew that other programs like precision probably existed, at least this one had been stopped. At least her father's death had been avenged. The years that followed brought a kind of peace Kate had not thought possible. Her ranch became known throughout the veteran community as a place of healing. Men and women came from across the country to learn to shoot, to find stillness, to discover that they were more than their trauma. Kate taught them all, shared her father's lessons, passed on his legacy to a new generation. Ray became her chief instructor, bringing 4 decades of military experience to bear on teaching young veterans how to find purpose after war. Luis handled ammunition and equipment, building custom loads for each student's specific needs. Kane ran the administrative side, managing finances and coordinating with veteran organizations. Together, they built something that mattered, something that honored the dead by helping the living. On the 5-year anniversary of her father's death, Kate made a pilgrimage to Arlington National Cemetery. She stood before his headstone, reading the words carved into marble. Sergeant Major James Brennan, United States Marine Corps, devoted father, honored Marine. She placed her hand on the stone, feeling the warmth of the sun-heated granite. "I kept my promise," she said. "I finished the mission, found the truth, made them pay. You can rest now." But even as she said the words, Kate knew her father would not want her to stop, would not want her to simply maintain what he had built. He had always pushed her to go farther, to be better, to achieve what seemed impossible. So Kate made a new promise, not just to maintain her father's legacy, but to expand it, to take the knowledge he had given her and use it to train a generation of protectors, people who understood the responsibility that came with the ability to take a life from a distance, people who would use that ability to serve something bigger than themselves. The shooting range in Montana was just the beginning. Within a year, Kate would open 3 more facilities in different states. Within 5 years, she would establish a foundation that provided free training to veterans suffering from PTSD. Within 10 years, her father's name would be synonymous with precision shooting done the right way for the right reasons. But all of that was still to come. For now, Kate simply stood before her father's grave and allowed herself to feel the full weight of what she had accomplished. She had taken an impossible shot, had faced down a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government, had survived when everyone expected her to fail, had brought justice to those who thought themselves above the law. She had become exactly what her father had trained her to be, not just a shooter, but a warrior. Someone who fought not for glory or revenge, but for principle, for honor, for the belief that some things were worth dying for and even more worth living for. As Kate walked away from Arlington Cemetery, she passed rows and rows of white headstones. Each one represented a life given in service to something bigger. Each one was a story of sacrifice and honor and the price of freedom. Her father was one story among thousands, but his story had been told, his truth had been revealed, and his legacy would live on in every shot Kate took, every student she trained, every life she touched. That evening, back in Montana, Kate climbed to the highest point on her property, the place where she had set up her final sniper position all those months ago, the place where she had taken that impossible shot in Syria. She carried her father's rifle, chambered a single round, and aimed at a target 4,000 meters distant, farther than she had ever shot before. The wind was calm, the temperature was perfect. Every variable was as close to ideal as nature ever provided. Kate controlled her breathing, slowed her heartbeat, became utterly still. She thought about her father, about Tom, about everyone who had believed in her when she did not believe in herself. Then she squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared, the bullet flew. 10.4 seconds later, 4,000 meters distant, the target rang with impact. A new record, A new achievement, proof that the impossible was just another challenge waiting to be overcome. Kate smiled and began breaking down the rifle. Tomorrow, she would teach her students what she had learned, would pass on the lessons that had been passed to her, would continue the legacy that her father had started and that she had carried forward. The mission was complete, but the work would never end. And Kate Brennan, daughter of a Marine, student of precision, seeker of justice, was ready for whatever came next. She had taken the last shot. Now she would spend the rest of her life making sure it counted. Thank you for spending these 3 hours with Katherine Brennan's journey. As a storyteller, I'm deeply honored when veterans and military families share that these stories resonate with their experiences. The brotherhood, the sacrifice, the weight of doing what's right when the system fails you. Kate's 3,547-meter shot isn't just about the distance. It's about a daughter refusing to let her father's truth die in silence. What part of this story hit you hardest? Was it Tom's sacrifice, Ray's loyalty, or Kate's final choice? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment, and if you believe stories like this matter, hit subscribe. More missions, more truths, coming soon. Semper Fi.